Oh, right. I guess we're back again. So, yeah, it seems that people they don't they don't understand this submission thing. It seems really strange. But I guess it goes back on what Kendra was saying about submission itself, or femininity itself. That women, for the most part, they don't understand what femininity is. So much to a point that they cannot explain it. They can't explain what it is, what it looks like, how it manifests, how it is intangible. They can't really unexplain anything. All I can explain is the different levels of it. So I guess it's not surprising that women cannot explain submission. I guess that's not surprising at all. Um, but I figured that why not talk about it? Why not have a conversation about it? Hold on, let me close my door. Hold on, 1 second. I'm gonna mute. Gonna mute. All right, I'm back. Seems like everything. I sat here for hours, literally watching this, and everything was quiet for hours. The minute I go live is when everything else goes live. I guess. Guess everything's working on my time schedule. When I go live, everybody else go live. I don't mean literally, but in some way, shape, or fashion. Hey, what's going on, Rainy Woman? What's going on, Miss Dimples? Let's see. I'll go ahead and put this in here. This will be the first time that I've talked on a panel on my channel, so hopefully it is a good experience for everyone. But nonetheless, we need to suss out some stuff because, um, yeah, I've seen some stuff. I was looking at one Master Teacher's channel, uh, the video that he had. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and look that video up. Uh, Let me go to my history. Oh, there it is. Oh, why can't I copy it? Um, hmm. I'll open it. And, oh, it's still paying through my headphones. That's weird. Hmm. Let me copy the link. You know what? I'm probably going to switch over to my Bluetooth. Switch over to my Bluetooth. But what's going on, Kenny B? Here's the link, and I think I'll put it in the description as well. Let me see, description box. Yep, put it there. I'm gonna put one master teacher video. That way, if you guys are listening to the playback, you can look at this video at any point in time in your leisure. But the one of the topics that got brought up. Oh, come on! I want to let me do it. Whatever. I'll put it in there later. But one of the topics that got brought up was the topic of submission. There was a guy on his panel. I'd say roughly about 2.5 hours in. I think it was. It was 2:36. I think is the time. I want to say it is. Matter of fact, let me look at it because I got it up right now. Hold on. Let me switch over to my Bluetooth though. That way I don't get any feedback, and I can listen to stuff separate. 1 second. Let's see here. Bluetooth it up. Uh, Let me go to my settings. Yeah, you know me. You guys know me. I'm never ready. Never ready. Never ready. Uh, I guess I need to go to. Hmm. Oh, yep, never ready. Oh, never ready. Add this good old Bluetooth device. There we go. Connect it. There we go. Make, okay. I think. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello. Can I get a one in the chat for somebody if they can hear me? I got three people watching. I guess I'll just check it myself. Let me check. Let's see here. How do I go in and check? Oh goodness. Oh goodness. Uh, how do I go in and check my mic? Oh, okay. Let's see. Um, okay, so you guys can hear me. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Greatly appreciate it. I want to know if I'm low though, because I think I might be low, because I don't see the. Let me check my sound settings. Let's see, sound display. Um, open volume mixer. Let's see. Hey, how's it going, Raining Woman?
OMG. Hi, Wolf.
What's up? Can you hear me good?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. So that means that the stream is hopefully good on the other side.
Hopefully. Yeah. I definitely wanted to join in on this because, submission is definitely something that I believe in and am in full support of. So I'm here to join in, but I will definitely listen until it's time for me to add something.
Sure. So I was going over Master Teacher's one channel, and he had a panel with a couple. Mm, I call them misguided young women or females rather, because they're not young per se, and I wouldn't necessarily consider them women because I don't know them. I think women calling a female a woman is a characteristic based on your perspective and understanding of them. I don't think every female should be called a woman because woman is something that's quantified, and if I can't quantify you, then I can't necessarily consider you a woman. It's the same thing as men. I look at it the same way. Um, she is says you're loud. I don't know why, but the way I look at it is I can't consider a dude a man unless I can quantify him as a man. That's the way I look at it. But anyway, nonetheless, they had these females on this panel in regards to, I think the topic was, let me go back and look at the topic. Why aren't black women submissive? So the topic was about submission itself, and it says with JMOR and Brandy, those were the two consistent women on that stream. But okay, I'll be back away. Okay, um, but those are the two women that were consistently on that stream, um, and these women, boy. Edward was tearing their ass up. I will say that. Edward was tearing their ass up. But when Edward wasn't on the panel, uh, some of the men that were up there, they weren't able to properly contend with those women. Well, me personally, I watched a lot of it. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched enough of it, and it was to the point where um, I wanted to I wanted to like comment or something. I wanted to click in and let me on the panel, but it was after the fact of it being recorded. That's how much it was pretty much triggering me. And maybe I probably shouldn't watch stuff like that. But I think it's very strange that women don't understand what submission is. They don't understand by and large because for the fact that this is how I know that by and large women don't understand what submission is. They have a problem with it. They want to contend it, they want to define it. They want to say, well, this submission is different from that submission. They want to and it's very dissenting the way they do it. It's a little bit of gaslighting they throw in there, but for the most part, they're in non agreements when a man says, this is what I believe submission is. Well, once again, that goes back to what I said earlier. Um, Men, we are in charge of quantifying what submission is. And that's not necessarily means that women do not have an input in it. But what I mean by that is women aren't the ones who are accepting a woman's submission. Men are. So therefore, we dictate what is submission in our eyes. So therefore, if we can dictate what submission is, we can then tell women what submission is. Once again, that doesn't necessarily mean that women cannot have an input on that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that at the point where it starts is not the point where it ends. It does not the point where because it starts with the woman giving the submission and it ends with the man accepting the submission. So it's more like it's more like if you take a test. You studied real hard, you think you know everything, you take a test, your teacher fails you on that quiz. Why did they fail you? Because you didn't meet the criteria that was already set forth by the teacher of what the right answers were. So it's not necessarily saying that you got a complete zero, but you didn't get enough to pass. That's kind of what it's like, but it's based on a criteria that the teacher has created according to what the right answers are. um and that's how I look at it. It's not to say that women once again don't have an input on it, but they're not the ones who are grading the submission. It's almost like you know uh it's almost like if I had my child, what for instance, and I I said to them, um, I'm going to give you a punishment. And they're like, no, 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 no. I'll define what the punishment is. And you're like, what? You know, or I'm going to give you a reward. Oh, no, 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 no. I'm going to define what the reward is. How are you going to tell me what reward I should give you if I'm the one that's giving it? Now, I'm not looking at it from the point of view that the women are giving the men a reward. No, submission is not a reward. I don't look at it that way. Because submission isn't something that doesn't come without responsibility. you know, um, for instance, I look at submission like a car that I can barely afford that I won on a game show. That's the way I look at submission a little bit because uh, little do you know that these cars that people win on game show they have to pay taxes on and then you have to insure them, and then you have to keep up the maintenance on it. Like, no, yeah, yeah, you got a free car, but it comes with liable responsibilities. That's how I look at submission. So sure, I may have gotten a woman's submission, but that does not alleviate me from the responsibility that comes with her giving me that submission. And that submission can be is not limited to just the upkeep of her in specific ways, but it is also potentially including my life. So I'm paying a potential high price based on me accepting this woman's submission. But I don't think women look at it that way, because women kind of draw this line where, because of feminism, they draw this line where, well, I've taken care of myself all these years and you don't have to die for me. Well, that's not how it works. You don't get to, as a man, you don't get to halfway accept a woman's submission. So therefore, I'm not in the belief or the corner that you get to halfway give me a submission and it's still considered submission. Mm-mm. That's not how it works. Because let's go back to jobs. Women understand jobs because there are a lot of women who work them, of course. If you're if you sign a contract with this job and it has a lot of legal jargon in it, but it essentially boils down to you being liable um, to move at the whims of the company, but they will pay you a price as a result of it. Let's say they were going to pay you 250,000 to be available at any point in time of the day, and you sign that contract, uh, and you were able to do any of the jobs that they needed you to do, and you sign that contract. Well, just because they give you easy jobs and hours that work with your schedule doesn't mean that when they ask you to do something that is not your job and they give you hours that do not work with your schedule, that you can just bow out and still call yourself a loyal employee.
That is facts.
That's not how this works. And that's not and the woman one of the women, they were describing BDSM. They were saying that a woman's submission is kind of like BDSM. And I was just having to talk about that, but the way they were describing it is that they were nitpicking what you could do and what you couldn't do. But here's the thing about it. They forget that men are very creative. We are very, very creative. And this is the reason why the guy on the panel was saying that it's either you submit or you don't because of that creativity in men. The reason why that's so important because let's just bring up the conversation that they were having in regards to BDSM, which I necessarily didn't listen to all of it, but I listened to enough to gather that they were obstinate against what the man was saying. Nonetheless, what they were saying was that in between the dominant and submissive in the relationship, there is a contract that is struck, meaning that there is certain things that they agreed upon and that certain things that they were not going to do. Now, if we know anything about this world, is that it is numerous in possibilities. This is where men's creativity comes in at. Because even though you may have agreed to, let's say, I don't know, you don't want to go through any pain in regards to the contract, and you did not list anything because you can get as specific as you want to. This is the reason why I also say that you should be careful what you ask for from the universe because you will get it, but it won't be what you imagine it to be. Nonetheless, when you create this contract, due to the fact that you cannot list everything that is known and possibilities to the world of existence, you are going to leave what I call a loophole in place. Meaning that just because you say to this man, hey, I do not want any pain, that means he can do everything up until the point where you reach pain. He is because that's within the contract, meaning that you will do everything up until pain. This man will become so creative to get you to do things that you necessarily might not have thought that you were going to do because you did not include it in that contract, but he will alleviate you from all pain at the same time. Isn't that interesting? So the woman on the panel, I believe her name was Janae, was saying that she wanted a man that was going to keep in line with her being able to earn money for herself so that they can build a quote unquote empire. Nonetheless, what the man was saying is that the submission is there or it's not because of the creativity of men. Because in that scenario, I can see myself accomplishing everything that I want with that woman if her only stipulation was that she was left to make money. Because she's not going to stipulate how much, when, where, how at all. She's just going to say, I don't want to be a housewife. Okay, cool. We'll make you, what do they call them, a household technician. That will be your title. And every time that I ask her to do something that a household technician would do, she's probably going to say, "Oh, no, no, I'm not going to do that. That's housewife stuff." No, no, no. That falls under the category of household technician. You're not a housewife. You are a household technician. You see what I mean? So it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what stipulations you put on it. It's either you give your man submission or you don't, because he will be creative and go around that. And then on top of that, not only will you be a household technician, he will say, yes, you can earn money, but you can only work 5 hours a week. Find a job. Go ahead. You didn't say how much money. You didn't say how many hours. And even if you said, I want to work 40 hours a week, he'll still find a way around that. That's what women don't understand. That you cannot write a contract within BDSM that excludes the possibility of that man getting around that. You can't. So what you necessarily have to do in these circumstances, this is the reason why these relationships, I put myself included in this, these relationships are held to high standards, because the first thing that you need in order to substantially maintain this relationship is trust. Trust is the overall. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's where it all begins.
Yes.
That's where it
And
all begins.
and a lot of these women, they believe that if they make a good enough contract, then they don't have to worry about if they can trust the man or not.
But
That's the silly
then
part.
that you have used some very great, informative, educational analogies. I love them all. Is this a good place for me to interject, or should I wait a little longer?
Sure, sure, go ahead.
So I'm glad that you brought up trust, because ultimately, all submission really is surrendering to your trust. That's and I think I really think that the modern westernized female complicates it so much by really just trying to hold on so much to her individualism and trying to hold on so much to her independence that they totally overlook that it's basically surrendering. And the whole point of trusting you and the whole point of getting with you and surrendering to you is so that I don't have to be so independent. I don't have to be so reliant on myself. I don't have to be, and at the same time, it's not necessarily what I want from my life, but when we're looking at relationships, we want men to lead, first of all, in order for a man to lead, you have to submit. You have to surrender to him in order for him to lead. If you're not going to surrender for him to lead, he is not being allowed to lead. He's not being allowed to be the man, period. And it serves us, women, it serves us to surrender to the men that we say that we want to be with, so that you can cover and protect us and guide us, and we don't have to figure everything out on our own. And it's also, and feel free to stop me if I go too far, please.
Oh no, go ahead.
And it's also a place for us to grow, right? For us to grow in our patience, for us to grow in our nurturing, for us to grow in our maturation, for us to grow in our learning ourselves and in learning you. Because in order for me to fully trust you and learn to trust you, that's a continual thing all the time. And it's patience when on my own trying to figure it out, getting a little anxious if you don't figure it out, fast enough, or if it's not going the way I think it should go, I thought it might have gone. It's still trusting you in that. Because what I'm surrendering to is I'm trusting that you have my best interest at heart. So you're going to make the decisions, and you're going to do the things that's going to be out for my best interest because you take an interest in me. I am one of your investments. You are investing in me. I am an invested interest because I'm an extension of you. So I get to grow in my patience and how you work that out. Even if something goes wrong, I still, that's where I grow in my support and learning how to support you even when things go wrong, that you're still going to make it right, get it right.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. That's exactly how it goes. What's good, Grinch? But yeah, that's exactly how it goes. The trust, and the thing is, they try to nitpick um, what they can and what a man can and can't do, what he should do or shouldn't be doing. That's not because that's you're still worrying about where you're going to be at that point in time. A woman given their submission is so that she alleviates herself from uh, the trappings of the things that she needs help with in regards to this world. Because men, we are put here to do specific things, and the reason why a woman comes to a man is because he is better at doing those things than she is. So if she submits to those things, then that alleviates her having the responsibility of those things. So therefore, that's the whole purpose of why the submission is in the first place. A lot of women are missing that. They are thinking that on one hand they can submit to I don't know, maybe doing the laundry, but they have a problem with doing the dishes. Well, what would you be doing on your own anyways? You'll be doing the laundry and you'll be doing the dishes. I don't understand why um, a woman submitting to a man has to come with stipulations with a lot of these women or females out here, because that's exactly what it is. They're putting stipulations on their submission, but that's the reason why you're submitting is so that you don't have the put stipulations on your life in the first place and on your relationship in the first place. Because if it's either all or nothing, because once again, men can become creative. That we're good at this. We're good at creating the boundaries necessary in order to keep you in submission, even at 100%. Because once again, like I said, we'll go back to the whole analogy uh, of the what do you call it? The house technician versus a housewife. Like, okay, you don't want to be a wife, and you don't want to be a mother, a housewife over children. We'll call you a house technician and a daycare provider. How about that? you know Men, we can become very, very creative with these things. I don't know if you guys can hear me. Can you hear me?
Your mic is kind of low, actually, is what they're saying in the chat room.
Yeah, I switched over to my headset. um Hey, give me one in the chat if my feedback is pretty good. Let me know. What's going on, Gino? What's going on, JLJ?
So someone commented, if I may address a comment
Hmm.
with, it looks like uh, Akatsuki. I hope I'm saying that right.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. So Kennedy says that it is low, but it's clear. So Akatsuki says it should not be easy to surrender either. I can be picky. And what I want to say to that is yes, you definitely can be picky, Akatsuki, but you can be too picky and also be alone. Like, are you just being too, like, I think sometimes females are not clear enough in exactly why they're being so picky.
Hmm.
So she says, yes, many years, but at the end of the day, I will always be where I choose to be, and I'm enjoying my view.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, definitely, I don't go around supporting people to settle, right? Like, don't settle, but don't be so picky to the point to where you're just like nothing and no one is ever good enough. Like
Hmm.
what is the standard?
Hmm. And that's another thing. I don't think, by and large, women have a they don't have a vetting process. That's probably um, a huge factor in it. Let me see if I can. Oops. Oh, okay. Let me try to fix my volume a little bit. I have no idea what's going on with this thing. But nonetheless, I believe that women they don't have a vetting process. They come from a area where the the factory that was teaching them, or the school or the tenants that were teaching them these things, they didn't pass along proper knowledge, or enough knowledge that could give women proper vetting tools. I mean, because I don't, to be honest with you, I can't necessarily say that women have had great vetting tools to begin with. I mean, because we are directly coming from a stage where uh, women were well, we progress from women being selected and them having no say in it, and then we went to um, women uh, having some say in it, and their fathers approving, or them having some say if they want to be married, and then their father or family picking a mate for them, and then we progress to uh, the women being able to choose, and then the father or the family approves of them, and now we're in the age where we've completely got away from that whole system of women um, uh, having some type of system to fall back on, and just pushing them out the door and say, "Well, hope you make it," you know, and I think that's an unfortunate thing. Seriously, that's what happened. I mean,
Right.
I can't recall any woman that I've ever uh, ran across who told me that their mother gave them proper vetting tools that has sifted out into them picking uh, a close to desirable mate. Most of the things that I've heard is that my mom told me that a man should do X, Y, Z, but yet I keep finding these knucklehead niggas out here. So it's not, they didn't give them any good tools to even find anything close to a positive mate. But once again, they also were not taught what submission is in the first place. A lot of women believe that they give their submission to men, and then they feel scorn behind it. But I believe what they gave to them was their ego. I don't think women necessarily have given their submission, for the most part, when they say that they feel some type of way about giving another man their submission. No, you gave him your ego. You gave him your pride. That's what you gave him, man. You gave him the benefit of the doubt that he was going to be able to uh, hold you hold you accountable, and hold himself accountable, but not hold you all the way accountable like he holds himself. Just to some small degree, and to the point where he didn't hold himself accountable, but he held you accountable for some things that he didn't hold himself for. That's what I think. Uh, but I don't believe. I believe that these standards that are being set up today are just a product of what the system and society tells women that they should look for and qualify as a good man. Because if you actually listen to that panel, these women were saying that these men aren't building anything, and then they would say, and then the men would rebuttal, well, the men who are going overseas, you just don't you just don't get to walk overseas. You have to have money, especially if you plan on buying a house and having a wife and taking care of a family. You just don't up and just go and then poof, magically now you have a family. They did some planning, they did some processing, they did some foresighting to get to that point. So therefore, they get the women that they want because they put themselves in a position to do so. So it's not something that just pops out of thin air. But these women were saying that, well, you know, they didn't have necessarily an answer for that. And then it went to um, them talking about the respect and the disrespect. They don't even have a necessary clue of what actual disrespect is because they spew it themselves. But if you criticize or critique their point of view, they view it as disrespectful. That's why I think there's a lot of disconnect on the meaning of these words that they use. Like submission and respect and honesty and honor and integrity. They don't have any clue because the vetting tools that they were given were these words, but they represent something completely different, so far away from the truth that there's a disconnect when people have these conversations. Because the men understand what submission was. I can explain it to you back and forth. It's simply adhering 100%. There is no, oh well, maybe in instances, because the reason why you submit 100% is because you are giving the trust. Not the submission is not an action. It's something that you accept. You know,
Right.
it's not. It's submitting is something that you accept, but you accept it because you are giving the trust. You accept that that is a consequence of giving your trust that you will submit. It's not something that you actually do. You know, it sure it can be represented as some things, but it is once again an intangible thing because it comes from the feminine, and most things from the feminine are intangible. So it is not something, it is not a verb. It is a presence, rather than a being. That's how I talk about femininity. So I don't. So that's the reason why I'm having this conversation, because I don't think I think you have to be feminine in order to submit. I'm going to make that reach and say that because
Absolutely.
I don't think you can
Absolutely.
do it otherwise.
Absolutely.
And
I
I
concur. You definitely have to be feminine in order to submit. Because if you're not, you're going to be bucking heads, but you're going to be locking horns, bumping heads, and you're just going to be bucking everything. You're going to be in an ego war all of the time. And that's nothing but trouble.
yeah,
That's a state of confusion. That's adding chaos.
yeah, and I don't necessarily understand. And I think that's where the disconnect comes in, at because I believe that the women the women, due to the fact that they have a faulty, because okay, let's just back it up a little bit here. Let's start with the fact that a broken vessel equals broken femininity, and if submission comes from femininity, then that equals a broken view of submission. Because if these women have broken vessels, that is thus going to create broken femininity, and then thus creating a broken uh, a broken ideology of what submission is. And it sucks because men, we don't operate on this level of being a vessel for women. We are not a vessel for women. Um, so therefore, we can talk to women and tell them what we see, but the outside looking in is so different from the inside looking out. And I think that's where the disconnect happens, because on on it's almost like being on top of a hill, you being on top of a hill and somebody's down in the valley, and you yell down to them, hey, there's a huge tsunami coming, but they're in a valley, so they can't see past the other side of the top of the ridge. But you can, because you're standing on top of the mountain, on the adjacent side of of the valley. You can see that this tsunami is coming, but this person, they don't believe you because they can't hear it, because the ridge line is blocking it. They can't see it because the ridge line is blocking it. And I think that's where the disconnection connection comes from, due to our relativity of what we see as the truth. Because the truth is always present. But the thing is, based on where you are in relation to the truth, can make the truth seem true or non existent to you. And I think that's the problem with the women, because they believe that speaking from their broken vessel, speaking from their broken femininity, is the actual truth of how they submit. But that is not the truth, because we are the men who are standing on the ridge line. So therefore, we can see something that the women who have broken vessels cannot, because we do not have broken vessels in the way that they do. Some men, yes, we do have broken vessels, but nonetheless, we do not have it in the same way that women do, because we are not the same type of vessel as women are. But you know, maybe I'm, maybe I'm,
That's
you
true.
know.
I'm still a little stuck and perplexed at the statement of, but I get to choose who I submit to. And it's not, let me be clear, it's not you, Akasuki, because I've heard this several times, and I think that no, I don't think that perplexes me because we are, especially as Black women, we are the same ones who are always saying that we are protected, that the Black man does not protect us, the men don't protect us, the men don't protect us. And when they tell us that they're not going to be out here protecting random women, they're not going to be out just standing up for random women, there's a whole outcry about it. So, my question is, how do we as women feel like it is okay for us to quote unquote pick how and when we're going to submit, but it's not okay for men to pick who they're going to protect? And my other question to that is, how are you, what kind of energy are you standing in to say, I'm being picky about when or who I'm going to submit to? Because let's say you're getting to know someone or you're dating someone, right? And you are in this, I'm going to call it guarded. I'm going to say that you're guarded with your femininity. You're guarded with your submission. You're guarded with your right to choose, select right. And while you're guarded, you still have this expectation of him to perform in some kind of way in order for you to let your guards down a little bit more, right? But why should he be jumping through hoops for you to let your guard down? Why should he be jumping, like, why should he be why should he be performing for you as if he's your entertainer? I think we need to really take something just fell off my desk. But I think we really need to take a deeper look at ourselves about what's happening with us. Why are we in this mode, right? And what do we want to see that's different? That means we got to take a different action. And what actions are we willing to take that's different in order to receive different results?
Hold on, I'm fixing my mic real quick. But I agree with that, because the reason why I look at it this way is because men, and we me and Aka, we talk all the time. And I've had that conversation with her before. I said to her, and she understands that a lot more than in the beginning, than when I first posed that question to her, because I let her see it tangibly on the ground, what it represented, rather than just saying it to her. I think women need examples a lot of times of these things, because we have to understand, that we are not, first off, we're not using the same language, but we are using the same words. For instance, um, it's almost like there, and there. Like depending on the context that you're using in, those are spelled differently. And I think that's the problem, that women are using the same word in a different context than what men are using that same sounding word in a different context as well. And I think that's where the disconnect comes from, because women's idea of submission is completely different. And we can see that because when women say, "Oh, I don't want to be a slave," and we're like, "What are you talking about?" Because submission to the women represents something different than it does to the men. And that's why we can never have a fluid conversation on these things, because no one has defined, we don't come from a history where we have relational submission and relational dominance. We come from where everyone is taught to survive and fend for yourself. No one was taught uh, how to navigate relationships. My mom, my dad, they never gave me relationships advice. The biggest. Well, let me take that back. The only thing that my mom told me when I was growing up is stop dating those light skinned women because they're gonna send you to jail. That's the only that's the only advice that my mom gave me. Only advice, and that was partly true, but it was partly not true as well, because I had black women try to send me to jail. I mean, I don't, and that's a shame, because all that information that has happened over the past 100 years boiled down to her telling me, don't date light skinned women. So you're going to tell me that this is a colorist issue, and then if I avoid anything that represents colorism, then all of a sudden my life is going to be peaches and cream when I'm dealing with any woman who is uh, matriarchally approved, gynocratically approved. That doesn't make sense to me. And it didn't make sense to me when she told me. And for the fact is, I told her in response that I don't necessarily have a preference for light skinned women. They have a preference for me, because I tried to talk to black women and they don't want nothing to do with me for some reason. We had that conversation. I understood what colorism was at a very early age in my life. But I understood this. This is what I'm spelling out. I understood this before I understood what submission was, what being a man was, what a healthy relationship looked like. You see what I'm saying? So we are getting the wrong information passed down, and we've been scapegoating the responsibility of creating the circumstances that are needed for our children and going forward for them to have healthy relationships.
I agree. So this goes to us needing to have more real conversations, right? About what certain things mean to certain people. I think, I am really, really big, huge on the getting to know phase, right? Like,
Hmm.
and I haven't seen it fail me yet. I haven't seen it fail anybody yet. People will fight me on. I'm talking about, males and females will fight me on, taking your time, asking pertinent questions, but then they all come back. They all come back and say they what they wish they had listened, that they wish they had done. But
Yeah.
if I don't know, if I have my own idea of what submission is, right? And let's say it's scary for me, right?
Hmm.
Because I see it as me giving everything I have to a man and him totally dominating who I am. He, making me like I just like not he look, he's making me like he makes me do all these things. It's just all about him. And I have little say in my opinion about anything doesn't matter. I cease to exist. I just said from hand and foot, I'm gonna be barefoot and pregnant all the time. It's just all about him. I get nothing out of this. Let's say that's just my idea, right?
Hmm.
And we have a conversation about it, and you say, well, submission to me is this. And it's nothing like what I imagine. It's nothing like what I have heard. It's not like what I have just conjured up in my head, right?
Yeah.
Well, I get to say if what you have identified as submission is something I can do or I cannot do, something that, you know, something that I'm willing, I can yield to or not. But if we never have that conversation, I might be able to say, yeah, you know what, really? It's because my friend or this girl that I know, she submitted to her husband and we never see her, and she does this and she does that and she looks like this, she looks like that. And what you're saying is not that, which means it could be subjective because what how you want someone to submit to you could be totally different from somebody else.
Right.
But unless we have the conversation, we will never know. And if I'm just like, well, I'm just not going to have the conversation. Ladies, if you're listening to this, right? So I'm just not going to have the conversation. I'm going to avoid it at all costs. If I even think it's going to come up, and of course I'm saying this because this happens, if I even think it's going to come up, I'm going to either change the subject or I'm going to leave and go get in my own space, go let you be in your space. I'm going to act like there's an emergency. I'm just going to avoid it because I'm attracted to you, right? I'm attracted to you. And I see something in you, but I'm afraid that this whole submission, this possible submission conversation could mess all that up, right? And I don't want to mess that up.
Hmm.
It's a disrespect of self and a disrespect of you because it is a disrespect of time.
Right.
And it shows immaturity as a person, as a woman. It shows immaturity.
Yeah. And I
You
agree with
need
that.
this kind of woman needs a little, not a little, this kind of woman needs a lot more time to develop herself to where she can get over these little girly activities and these little girly reactions in order to be responsible. See, womanhood comes with responsibility. Being a female does not. We're born a female, but womanhood comes with responsibility. Relationships comes with responsibility.
I definitely agree with that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Because mine isn't doing a little bubble thing. How can y'all hear me out there really good? Can y'all? You know, I just want to make sure. Let me check. Let me check my audio again. Yep. Oh, it's not making any noise. Maybe that's it. Okay, there we go. Okay, now we. Can you say something, Rainy Woman? Make sure that I can hear you.
Ooh, that
Right?
is better. That is a
Okay.
yeah.
I had to figure out the combination. All right, there we go. There we go. But yeah, I definitely agree with you that it was a waste of time, and that's kind of what one master teacher was saying because he brought up, and well, actually Edward brought it up. If you look at the stream, he brought up that the women they have criteria. They have criteria. They have stipulations based on what they believe is an acceptable mate. But depending on if how good you look will depend on how much they will apply that to you. And that's a complete waste of time, just like you said. Because if the whole point of getting a man or having a woman is for them to meet a criteria, it shouldn't matter what they look like. That shouldn't determine whether or not you're with this person or not, or find them suitable or not, if the looks do not play a heavy part into it. But lo and behold, these women were sniffing themselves out and they were telling the truth. of what the circumstances was. And Edward, he was actually bringing that out of them, because when he said that to them, that women have their storefront price and then they have their wholesale price, and that is based on how you look, meaning that a woman will say to you, I want a man who is this, I want a man who is that, I want a man who is whatever. But then a good looking man comes along and they say nothing about their criteria whatsoever. And how you know this is true is because look at all the baby mamas. If they really wanted a man who was going to stay around, who proven himself to be a family man, who proven himself to be reliable, and I'm not necessarily saying that the men that they pick are 100% crap, but they do not fit that criteria that they had in their head. Because if they did fit that criteria, then they would have sex with him, and that man probably would still be around. Because part of the criteria I believe that any woman has in regards to who they deal with, except for the women of the gynocracy, because there's a little skew, but some of them fit in this criteria as well, that they have a criteria, and until you meet that, you will not get into between their legs. Now, due to the fact that we have these children running around with an illegitimate standing, that says that the criteria that women are placing upon men is unrealistic, because it does not fit the qualifications that they have given other men to get between their legs. There it is right
Exactly.
there.
Exactly. And if they choose to change it up later because they're like, you know what, I'm tired of going through this or whatever, then it's like, well, if you've been out here just handing out, excuse my references, but if you've been out here just handing out your cookie and your pie to just every Tom, Dick, and Harry, that looks good or that just had some money or a car or whatever, and then, now all you have left are cookie and pie crumbs or an empty tin pan, your bakery is no good. Don't get mad. Don't get mad when someone tells you that your bakery is no good.
Yep, yep. And that's the thing of it. Like, they are huge, and it's unfortunate because once again we understand, according to the analogy that I gave, or the approximation that I gave about how women have a broken view of submission, we understand that everything that comes from a broken vessel is going to be off. It's not going to be exactly what it represents. And I don't understand why men can't readily see this. You know, those guys on that panel, they wanted to argue with these women. And I'm like, why? Because it's no words that you can say to them one for one that they would understand, because they're hearing it with broken ears. Because once again, if you say submission to a woman, she's going to think slavery. Why is that? That's because she has a broken vessel, broken femininity, and therefore a broken understanding of submission in the first place. So there is no point in having a conversation with someone who will never hear you correctly. There's no point in that at all. It's almost like it's almost like trying to have a conversation with your cat. You know what I mean? Like, you can say certain things to your cat and they may get it. If you say, "Hey, get on off that table," and they be like, "All right, I get off the table." But if you say, "Hey, I want you to go to the counter, and I want you to kill that moth up there," and if he tries to get away from, chase him around the house, your cat would look at you like you was retarded, because we don't speak the same language. It's not. It's not necessarily that the cat doesn't understand English fully. It's just that we don't speak enough of the same language in order to have some dialogue back and forth to the point where we come to a resolution, due to the fact that we are working off separate lexicons based on the definition of individual words. That's the problem.
That is the problem. That is facts. Listen, I hate to go, but I have to make a call so I can prepare for my week coming up. But this has been so great. Thank you so much for having me on your first
No
live
problem.
discussion. And I look forward to more. You're doing a great job, Wolf. I fully support you and thank you so much.
No problem. No problem. Thank you for coming on. But nonetheless, I'll put the link in the chat if anybody else wants to have this conversation with me. But I can totally have it by myself. I don't have multiple personality disorder, but I'm a good conversationalist. But nonetheless, men have to understand that we cannot be. We can. The reason why. Okay, so the reason why these things happen as far as these panels goes, and the reason why they change into these whole blow up sessions is because we don't speak on the same context. The words that men, all the verbs that men use, we're using them from our perspective. Now these are verbs that we may use, I mean, we may actually do in our lives, but they may be verbs that we are far apart from. Due to that, that changes the contextual understanding of what these words tangibly represent. That's the reason why these women have an issue with the word submission in the first place, because it tangibly represents something to them differently, so much so than to the men. So that when we have a conversation, it's almost like I don't know, like for instance, some of the hot words that are used. Um, Okay, well, we'll use black people because we know the other section of people who went through a mass destruction of their people, they have a problem with you defining their experience. So we'll use the African American, or rather, excuse me, the Atlantic slave trade as an example. So there were certain words that were used in this example. So for instance, we'll go with the term, I don't know, Sambo. you know that word was used as a derogatory word towards black people. Now, in the conversation where I am having with a white person per se, let's say from another country, or let's say even our own country, because a lot of our people are ignorant to the truth of the history that we live, and I call them a Sambo, they look at me like, what? What's the problem? The reason why is because it represents something different contextually than it does to us. If they were to call me a Sambo, I have a problem with that highly. But if we were to call them a Sambo, they would be like, "What are you talking about?" While we're using the same words at the same time. That's the problem with submission because of the context and the contextual historical understanding of these things. What's going on, BGS?
Hey, Wolf. Yeah, well, of course, it's not in the black woman's culture to submit to their man.
Yeah, even historically, that's why I don't understand why any man who understands, and I think it's almost like poking the bear at this point. They want to see
Mm-hmm.
a circus, because they know that these women have no clue or want to submit because they don't understand what it means in the first place. So they want to have a circus based on making a mockery of these women because they
Mm-hmm.
don't understand the context. So they keep having these panels.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's why they want to hear him blow up, because I was listening to the first part of it, and she was complaining about the guys going overseas, and how the host should not encourage these men to go overseas and find women. They should encourage them to man up where they are, and and change where they are. In other words, you need somebody in authority to make these men not do what they want to do. In other words, they need to come back and deal with us on our terms.
Yeah, and one of the women actually said that. She was saying, well, we need to handle this conversation here. We need to make sure that these women are taken care of,
Hmm.
and then you can go on and handle your business.
Yeah,
No, 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 no,
yeah.
no, 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 no. That's the reason why SYSBM exists in the first place,
Hmm.
because we tried talking to you. We tried handling this situation for many years, and what did that turn into? That turned into us being a willing participant and propping up the gynocracy. And once we understood that that was what was going on,
Hmm.
we took our dicks and we went home.
Hmm.
And I just don't understand. And I don't. It seems like there's a saying, who's the biggest fool? The one having a conversation with the fool, or the one who's not? You know, is it Is it that the men who want to have a conversation with these women, knowing that they will never ever put themselves in a position where they represent anything in a true wholehearted semblance of what submission is, or are they the ones who are losing out, or is it the men who are wasting their time having a conversation with these very women?
It's the women. It's the women. It's the men that are actually wasting their time. The thing is that they've been brainwashed to believe that they can actually. It's their job to fix this.
Well, and the crazy part about it though is because
Mm.
one master teacher is the one hosting this panel about if American women are submissive when he's been around the world. Why do we need to have this conversation, sir?
Yeah, because it drives clicks and views. That's why.
That's very true. It does, but it's almost like and I don't necessarily want to say it because I'm not accusing him of doing anything, but I'm
Mm,
just talking about the overall manosphere culture, because it is becoming a culture now. It's not just a movement; it is becoming a culture.
mm,
At the point where things are, people are making songs and creating T-shirts. It's
mm,
probably a culture at this point.
mm.
Um, and due to that fact of it becoming a culture, we are the culture is seeming like it's mocking women for not being adapt to it.
Well, yeah, of course it is.
But at the same time, I understand that we can generate some type of revenue off of the trigger moments of these women. But nonetheless, what's the point? What's the point? Aside from money, because we can make our money everywhere, we can get our name everywhere. Why are we still going back to the table saying, "Look at what I got that you didn't get"? What's
Uh,
the point?
Basically, what I think really what they really want is one for other guys to see this is exactly how women are from their own mouths. Because if men say it, it's one thing, but if you demonstrate it, and that's what I used to do. If you demonstrate it that this is really the way they think, there's nothing for them to say because you heard it from the horse's mouth.
But we can see that that is not working.
Well, the thing is, the thing is that you can't unplug all the minds at the same time, can you, Wolf?
That's true.
So,
That's true.
and a lot of guys will not believe that that this is true unless they hear a woman say it. Because
That's
a
true.
lot because a lot of women say stuff online they would never say in person.
That's true as well. So would you say that this is just a emphasizing moment of men to drive their point home so that we reach a large solidarity in this movement?
Well, basically, it's the point of reference. In
Yes.
other
Yeah.
words, well, not man. I don't believe. I think men should man up, and the sisters would change if you change, and they would want to submit, and said, okay, well, roll that bean footage.
And it is some great bean footage.
Hmm.
I don't know why they even deal with Edward. They have no rebuttals for Edward, and it's kind of strange to see that interaction
Hmm.
because you can clearly tell the difference. And I'm not. This is no shot to any of the men who were on the panel because I didn't watch the whole thing. But I'm
Hmm.
just talking about the small interactions that I seen.
Hmm.
You can tell that when a man has control and he's creating the narrative instead of following the narrative,
Hmm.
because when Edward was creating the narrative, they had nothing to do but follow it because they had no responses. But when someone else was creating the narrative,
Hmm.
so quote unquote, they had a whole bunch of responses because they were the ones who were actually driving the narrative, and you can see that interaction.
Well, yeah, well, because whatever's been, listening to this stuff for 4 or 5 years. He's been listening to my women's panel for, since its inception. So all the stuff that they're saying, he already has answers to. He's heard this before.
Yeah, and it's so funny to watch them squirm.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it was so many points I wanted to jump on a panel of a pre-recorded video
Mm-hmm.
because it was that triggering to me. And I don't mean it necessarily like I was losing my mind, but I had so much to say. That's the reason why I'm up here now having this conversation, because it's not because that any of the men were wrong for anything that they said, because once again, I can't necessarily say that what they were saying was ill placed because it is to support a narrative. But what I'm saying is that We are having conversations with people, with women who have broken ears and broken understanding of the things that we are talking about.
They weren't they, okay. You have to be trained, cultured, and socialized in a particular form, right?
Hmm.
Submission, dominance, whatever it is all, even in the wild, it has to be uh, it has to be socialized. Okay,
Hmm.
if you're in a group, the dominant male or the submissive male, they're going to fight. Okay,
Hmm.
and they're going to learn who's the boss, who we should follow, who's going to lead. Okay,
Hmm.
human beings are a little bit more complex than that. If you want women to be submissive wives or take their role, which is really not even about submission, it's about you doing your freaking role that you're supposed to be assigned to. And they don't want to do it.
Hmm.
I mean, they want a partner. Okay, and when the last 40 years, you've broken that mold, you've broken that role. Because so now you have to get to know each other. You got to negotiate. You got to figure out whether this particular person's skills and abilities are suitable to your household.
Right.
Okay, you got to go through a year or two of that stuff like that. And even if she performs it, you don't know a year or two after that whether she's going to perform it or not. Because if she doesn't really want to perform it, then she can give you all the indications that she can, but a year later she won't.
Right.
It's what happens.
Yep.
And
And it, go ahead.
whereas before that, you could have two people that hated each other, a man and wife that hated each other. Look at Fences. He didn't particularly love her, and she didn't particularly love him. The
Hmm.
thing is, they got together. She was trained to do one thing. He's trained to do another. They put the two. They put the two pieces together. The machine works.
Right. And that's exactly what I was saying earlier in regards to submission. It's kind of strange that women think that they can nitpick in between where they will submit and where they will not and still call themselves a submissive
the,
woman.
the thing is that's a negotiation because you're not being picked. Okay, how
Right.
how much of the submission stuff am I going to have to do? The bare minimum I have to do to get what I need from you,
Yep. To get the full benefits.
to get the benefits. How much how little can I? That's really all it is. Not
Yeah.
how
And
much can I do? How little can I do? Do I have? Oh, does that mean I have to be a slave? Man should say you don't have to be nothing, baby, because you're disqualified. Should be zipped right off the list.
exactly. And that's why I follow a good rule of that I will not accept hard no's from women because hard no's are them saying that everything that I am is not worthy of getting a yes.
Hmm.
And it's not so much so and I don't draw simply hard lines like if I ask you to jump off a bridge and you tell me no, then you're not my girl because I'm not going to ask you to do anything that is ill placed. I'm going to ask you to do something that the things that I'm going to request of a woman is going to be not only for the benefit of her, but for the benefit of me and everyone else that's involved in my circumstances. So there should be no reason for a no. But if you find a place where you are placing a no on these circumstances, that means that you are not for the
Yeah,
movement and progression of you, myself, and everyone else involved. So why are you here?
yeah. And why you here? Basically, so if you want a partner, and I told my daughter this, if you want a partner, then then you're going to have to be as much or more valuable to him than he is to you,
Yep,
because he's got to see the value in you. Like a pimp and pimp and a whore, they're partners.
yep, yep,
He manages her. She goes out and she makes the money.
yep.
That's a
And,
partnership.
and you know that the crazy thing about it is that these women, they first off, I believe that they look at the pimp in the whole as being some type of the
Exploitation.
Romeo and they first off they look at it in a fantasy type place, because a lot of women haven't seen that per se because
Hmm.
it's not something that is not mainstream due to the fact that it is almost black marketish.
Hmm.
You so they only get the portrayal of what a pimp and a hoe is either
Hmm.
in a good light or a really bad light, but
Hmm.
nonetheless it is not the true light of understanding of what that relationship represents.
Hmm.
So even when they see that, because we are still working off the contextual clues, that they don't understand that these things are completely different in real life than what they think they are.
Right.
So they don't even understand the pimp and the hoe complex. They don't
No.
they don't understand that. So even trying to have that just that limited conversation with them, They are going off of HBO's version of this.
Hmm.
You know, and it's no different than a submission. They have and you am, everybody else have asked women, when have you seen the oppression of black women by black men? When
Yeah.
has this ever been represented? And no woman can really concisely answer this question. But yet and still, they have this ideology that oppression exists. Where did they get it from? TV, media. They got it from social media. They got it from hearsay. But they have never seen these things, but yet they have so much to say about them.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they were, I mean, they were raised with a mother. Okay. I'm sure if even if a single mother, they've seen their single mother interact with a guy,
Mm.
with a man. Okay. So they have they know what submission is and what it isn't. They're lying. The thing is, the thing is, um, I want, but all it really is them finding out exactly um, what it is. What is the minimum I have to do for you in a
And,
relationship
and now that you
to be
mention
to
it,
be to be picked. That's all it really is.
and not as you mentioned, that makes sense, because my go-to for it is
Mm-hmm.
like I look at these women as having broken vessels, therefore having broken femininity, therefore having broken submission, because I believe submission is derived from femininity itself. Not necessarily saying that men cannot you have submissive natures about themselves, because we have an animus and anima, so
Mm-hmm.
therefore it's going to be present in some faction, some
Mm-hmm.
form. But the thing is, we do not have the nature that supports the consistency of submission in the way that women have it. So
Yeah.
therefore, I believe they have a broken version of submission due to them having a broken vessel.
Well, if they want a partnership or they want to be dominant, they have to pay the price. In other words, um, I have a price. Okay.
Mhm.
If you wanted me to submit to you, I got a price, and you got to meet it.
Yeah, and
If
and and, and
if
I
I'm
brought
if I'm going to subvert my masculinity, there's a price that has to be paid.
Exactly, and I did a live stream earlier today where I bring up just that analogy. I used it in the form of insurance.
Mm,
At the point of a calamity, at the point of an accident, at a point of a mishap where you have or don't have insurance, could be the difference in what you experience in life. But the thing is, insurance is kept in place not when times are bad; they're kept in tight place when times are good. See, the women of today, I believe personally, that they don't want to pay the insurance premium, but they want the benefit upon incident. You know what I mean?
mm, mm. Yeah.
And that's why I say I agree with you definitely, because that's exactly what I said earlier.
Yeah. Well, basically, this society for the last 50 years has trained women to be dominant. Okay, which exacerbated the black woman's role of trying to be dominant. And the thing is that you can't have a matriarch or a gynocracy and still want patriarchal benefits. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. You can't want to have insurance benefits without paying the insurance
It's
premium.
premium, exactly. And a lot of what's happening now is really something that black women have never seen black men and really have, which is choice.
Yep. Yep.
Because the submission word never came up. I could tell you as a boomer, when I was young, that never came up.
Yeah, 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 and that's exactly what I was saying earlier in this stream. When I was taught certain things,
Hmm.
mind you, I come from. I wouldn't necessarily say, yeah, I'm going to say it. My mom was part of the gynocracy, and the reason why I say that is
Hmm.
because of how she moved and how I understand things now retrospectively.
Hmm.
So the only thing that she told me, my father really told me nothing about dating a woman. He just said he repeated the famous punchlines ever that men have in regards to dealing with women: never hit a woman. While I do agree with his stance on that, it is not for the same reason. You don't hit a woman because you don't give her the power. Now, under certain circumstances, that may be understandably so, in my
Hmm.
opinion. But in regards to dealing with a woman in such a way, we have other choices. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that just because you hit a woman, you're wrong, but just because you hit a woman,
Uh,
you're not right either. But nonetheless, what my
I,
mother,
I was never taught that.
well,
I
and,
would tell you,
and
my grandmother, taught me you hit who hits you. In other
yeah,
words, you hit if somebody hits you, you hit back. He said, never.
yep,
My mother, they always pass the old thing. You probably heard it from the country. Never pass the first lick.
yeah, yep,
Yeah,
yep. Yep, my mom was from Alabama, so I heard it.
you
But
heard it.
I learned different things as I grew older, and that's why I have the stances that I have about physical altercations.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, there's no one circumstance that fit all. So I can't say that a man should never hit a woman, and I can't say that a man should hit a woman based on the circumstances. It's
Hmm.
all dependent upon the individual man, nonetheless.
Hmm.
But what my mom told me, the only thing that my mother told me,
But
she told me stop dating light skinned women.
okay, well, is your mom dark skinned?
No, my mom is caramel complected, mind you.
Okay, okay.
But the reason why she told me is because light skinned to white women, they're going to land you in jail. That's the only dating advice she told me.
Well, coming from Alabama, I can understand that because my mother-in-law, she comes from Alabama, and they have something against light-skinned women.
I understand that as well. But nonetheless, there should have been more passed down to me. You
Hmm.
see what I'm saying? We have a blockage of understanding of some of the things that were necessary to keep these relationships in place that
Hmm.
are complete mysteries currently. Once again, uh, the reason why I believe that the word submission didn't come up in the boomer and before era is because the women who had it understood what it was, and
Yeah.
the women who didn't have it understood that they didn't want it.
Well, they didn't have to. They didn't have to understand what it was as a concept because they were trained to do it as a
Right,
practicality. They just did it because that was their training. So
right.
it never came up.
Right. And that's what I mean by the teaching.
Hmm.
Because it wasn't necessarily, that's the reason why I say that submission isn't a verb.
Hmm.
It is in the context of the actual word when you look it up as far as Webster goes, yes, it is described as an action. But I believe submission is more of a presence, meaning that it is something that is intangible. Because it derives from trust, which is another intangible thing.
It's
You know,
the thing is, all it basically is training. You look at the women that are the group of women that are submissive. It didn't come because what they were taught. It didn't come from what they was said. It came because that's the way they were trained. In fact, there was one Latina. I think she was, I think she was raised in California, and she got to be like 13, 14 years old, and her mother sent her to Puerto Rico for a couple years to her grandmother so she could learn how to be a wife.
mm.
So she said she had to learn, she had to be retaught how to serve, how to submit, and how to cater to her man.
Now, where was she sent to?
She's Puerto Rico,
The environment.
the environment, of course.
And that's another thing as well. The men seem to think that women are going to automatically change based on their own willpower.
No.
I can't recall a time that I've seen that before. I derive women's behavior based off of the environment,
Hmm.
and not necessarily wholly the environment that men create, but the biological environment as well. Because women are less likely to drive during snowstorms.
Mm.
I've,
Yeah.
I've looked into that statistic too. Women are less likely to drive in snowstorms, whereas everyone is, but men will drive it.
Yeah.
So women, that derives from their ability to look out for themselves first.
Hmm.
Because women won't put themselves into dangerous situations if they can justify not doing it. So
Hmm.
you know the physical environment and the environment that men create help cultivate what women choose to do with their lives.
Of
And
course.
I don't understand how men don't understand that.
Okay. The thing is, they do understand it, and I think this dude, he was a he's an anthropologist. He actually put something up in the forum. Okay,
Mhm.
You can change the environment. The thing is, if you change the environment, you also will actually make the environment harder for you. So you take all this stuff away, these modern conveniences away, and go back 50, 60, maybe 70 years. You're going the women will have to adapt to the environment, but the thing is, so will you. Are you willing to give up what you have to get something else?
And to be honest with you, I've asked myself that question before,
Hmm.
and the dude. Well, I'm a different type of man nonetheless, but I'll just give my personal opinion on it. Due
Hmm.
to the things that I have been through, as far as dealing with the military and the places that I've been, and
Hmm.
have to live remotely,
Hmm.
with some modern conveniences, I would deny myself the technological advances that we have come to be accustomed to in order to have some semblance of a woman, if I were these men anyway, to have some
Hmm.
semblance of a woman being submissive. That's why the small time girl, or the girl next door kind of thing, has always been a fantasy,
Yeah, that's right,
because
the fantasy.
yeah, yeah, because it represents in men's minds an age of women being docile.
Hmm.
You know, and I think personally, the answer to that question, I think if men could get that level of submission that they want, they probably would. I mean, men have started complete wars over pussy. Like, let's be frank here.
You know what, the wolf? I doubt it. Okay,
You don't think so?
no, I doubt it.
You don't think men would give up cell phones,
Nope,
cars?
nope, nope,
Well, the
nope.
Amish did.
The Amish did, and what part of the percentage of the population do they make up?
Less than 1%, of course, but
No, well, much less than one
nonetheless,
percent, like 0.01%.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, that we have examples of men doing just that. I don't discount the creative nature of men in pursuit of his goals. I mean, because SYSBM sprung up out of nothing. Sure, it was a consequence of women's behaviors, but
Hmm.
nonetheless, it was men collectively coming together almost instantaneously in thoughts that something needed to be changed, and it needs to start with us.
Well, the thing is, of course, it needs not something needs to be changed. The thing is, you need to make SYSBM is you making different decisions.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I mean by change. And that's why I said it starts with the individual. And I believe that's where the power of men changing the environment lies. That's what
You-
I've always been saying.
that's partly true and partly not true.
And
Okay.
why do you think it's not?
Because the goal of you look at the road of the history of human behavior is always to make life easier, not harder, and that is inbuilt into that's built into the organism. Okay.
Well, and the reason why I think that men will forego certain creature comforts is because they are doing it through SYSBM.
No, they're
Because
not.
the reason why I say this is because they are foregoing the native language and the native economics, the native everything that they are used to go to a
No.
foreign land that they have never been in their lives,
Hmm.
in pursuit of a submissive woman.
And in pursuit of a submissive woman, but also with the advantages of a modern society.
That's true.
It's
That's
just
true.
if that was the case, you wouldn't see dirt poor Latinos trying to make it up to El Norte.
Yeah, that's true.
So
But it is a cultural trade off nonetheless.
it's a cultural trade. It is a cultural trade off, but the thing is, you're still taking your advantages with you.
Uh, you know, on one hand, I will agree with you.
Okay.
Nonetheless, we do
The,
live in a you know.
the vast majority of people around the world never make it past the sixth grade. Okay,
Mhm.
even if you are a relative high school dropout, you're more educated than the vast majority of the people on the planet.
Right.
Okay, and,
And
and you come from a first world advanced society, so what you're used to, what you've seen, and and the techniques that you've seen, you carry with you. So
Hey,
you you carry the you carry that legacy with you. So it's not, I've been there. You've been down there. When you go to a foreign country, Wolf doesn't forget the first world he was raised in. He carries it with him.
True, true, and I will agree with you. And I'll make this point, and we'll see what Gary Perry has to say. But
Mm,
the reason why I think that men will forego some things, and that's what I meant by some things. What I meant
hmm
by is I'll have some level of a running water, whether it be a stream or a well, and I'll have probably a small satellite and some solar panels. That's as far as I'm willing to go. I'm willing to cut off the internet. I'm willing to cut off the internet. I'm willing to
uh-huh.
cut off the cell phone. I'm
hmm
willing to cut off having to go being a Walmart around the corner. I'm willing to cut off modern convenience as far as education. My
hmm
children not being
hmm
homeschooled versus going to
hmm
a elementary school or whatever. So some things I would forego if I were such a man.
If you were such a man, but what percentage of such a man does that represent?
I think that's yet to be seen, and I'm not I'm, and I'm not look, 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 I'm not gonna major in the minor. I'm not gonna major in the minor on that one,
Wolf,
but it's
Wolf,
not a good enough percentage for me to make my point. I get it.
Wolf,
Yeah, I know.
Wolf. I'm a Pan Africanist, man. I've been a Pan Africanist for the last 25 years. We've already asked that question. Guess what? The answer comes back.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Yeah, I know.
Not even close. Go ahead.
But what you gotta say, Gary?
Hello. Well, I'd just like to say that to have a woman that's submissive, this is just the result of the battle of manipulation that goes on between everyone at the start of a relationship.
Hmm. But
So nobody has to give up anything.
well, yeah, that's essentially what BGS saying. It starts off with the lowest bid. Instead of giving all the money that you have. Essentially, in regards to the women approaching the relationship.
Mm,
So yeah, we can agree that there is a inherent power struggle due to the social climate that we live in. But
mm.
what we're saying is that the women don't understand what submission is in the first place. That I mean, well, I'm saying that BGS is saying that the women understand what submission is. It's just that they trying to play silly and act like they don't have all the chips to give. Um, but I tend to think that they don't necessarily understand it from a man's point of view, which is unfair to say, because they'll
I
never.
think personally, from an economic point of view, they understand it very well.
No, I don't think so.
And what do you mean by that?
I think women are more intelligent than people give them credit for when it comes to getting possessions or money.
Oh, well, they're more intelligent than they pretend to be. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course, yeah. Nobody would even question that.
Well, yeah, but the thing of it is that how long are you going to hold this face? Is it until the collapse of the economic system that you depend on, and then you're going to come running back to the men, or do you have such foresight and understanding that you should probably work on your submission right now? That's
Yeah.
the question that I would pose to these women who are so much in a position that they have an understanding of what they're doing versus what they're choosing not to do. Um, but and I can't necessarily argue that because I've dealt with women who understood what it was they were required to do, but they tried to take that inch and go that extra
Of
mile.
course, yeah.
So I don't necessarily have an argument or disagreement with that. But at the same time, at what point are you so intelligent that you cannot make the right decision?
What is the right decision, though?
The right decision would be supporting your men, because if this economic system falls down that you have betted all your chips on, you're going to walk home broke.
Well, then at that point you will start making the right decision.
Well, the right decision for her is going to be whatever's in her best interest,
Of course.
True, but
right?
nonetheless, we as men, we have foresight of understanding that this is not going to pan out to her best interest.
Well, that's her problem.
BGS with the black pill.
It is. It's her problem. Yeah, my grandmother would tell you that my dead grandmother would tell you the same thing. That's her problem.
Yeah, and I agree with that. But I mean, how much can we give women credit if they are not making the correct decision based on what the circumstances,
If
what's in the cards?
but the thing is, how much do you give men credit if they screw up their life and they don't make the right decision?
I believe it. To me, I believe that has to do with, and this is not me saying that
I think
I'm
the
giving men a
situations,
pass.
those situations are totally different for a male and a female.
Why?
Well, yeah,
No, no. Why? No, stop. Why?
Because all the female has to do is, if she plays it smart, all she's got to do is open her legs for the right dude, and she's
Well,
right back in the game.
if she can do that, and a lot of them still do that, okay,
Oh yeah,
until you run out of men to open your legs to.
right.
And
yeah.
the only way you can open your legs to the right guy is if there's enough right guys and the system supports it, because there has to be a safety net. It
Eh,
has nothing really had to do with the right guy. It's had to do with the system supporting it. The system will only let women fall so far, so the risks are much lower.
But the between the male and the female, it's much easier for the female to get out of the situation. A female can go from relationship to relationship to relationship without ever having to work a day in her life.
but
She
but
can do that now. That wasn't
Yeah,
always the case.
but what BGS is saying is that there is a threshold.
Hmm.
There's a threshold. There is always a threshold to everything due to the fact that nothing exists in perfection. So there is a limitation to how far she can extend that. And we're saying what BGS saying and what I am implying is that upon the civilization, let's take it to I used this analogy earlier before the live stream, but let's take it to Walking Dead scenarios. The prettiest woman was not prioritized. It was the woman who could produce that was prioritized, meaning a woman who had such a standing that she either could talk well, she could cook well, she was a doctor, or she had some tangible output. That's who got to be a part of the collective. All of the women who had really nothing to offer, no
Hmm.
matter how pretty they were not included in that.
Yeah, and basically, if you look at it now, um, every woman cannot just open her legs to go from guy to guy to guy.
Yeah, that's going down.
The vast majority of them can't.
Yep.
Okay, you have a rare few, the top 20%. Can they go from guy to guy to guy by just opening their legs? Yeah, because their beauty can buy them that ticket. The vast majority of women cannot do that.
Yeah, and what we're saying is they can't do it in a way that it results in a forecast, a long forecast of resources.
Hmm.
Meaning that a woman can go out and get sex, but
Yeah,
there's going to be a threshold to how much she can get in response to that action.
hey, BGS, can I ask you a question real quick?
sure. Go
If
ahead.
you if you take away the pussy from a woman,
Hmm.
what do they have to offer?
If you take away the pussy from women in modern times,
Right now, yeah.
uh, well, basically they have. It's what are they willing to give you? Okay, they have a lot to offer. Say if a woman is making six figures, she can offer you a lifestyle.
Mm,
There's a lot they can offer. They just don't want to, which is
uh,
the problem.
but
Well,
for 90% of the case, that's not. They haven't got seven figures.
What
well,
that's true. They don't. So they have to. If it was just sex, then she would be just a prostitute. Okay, and she could sell her body. Then that would.
No,
But the thing is, they
I'm
would try
talking
to
about
price.
it from I'm talking about it from a dating point of view, where you're on a date. If
Yeah.
you take the pussy out of the equation, what can she sell? How can she sell herself to you?
Oh, there's she can be a better companion. She can cook. She can clean. She can take care of you. There's a lot of things a woman can do without sex.
well, essentially, Gary, in my opinion, you're making the point that I've been making this whole entire time.
What's that?
That men shouldn't be simps over pussy in the first place. You should
Yeah.
prioritize what the
Exactly.
woman is
Hmm.
based uh, rather than what you want her to be. I mean, because that still boils down, because men, we have this tendency to uh, get ourselves into a sexual fantasy scenario with women, and then we run that runs our battery and motivation to
if
deal with her past
if
the point where
if
we should.
if I tell a guy if I tell a guy if it was all just about pussy, right? And I tell a guy it's cheaper to actually go to the corner, pay you $25, get you some pussy, and come home, rather than take a chick out for $100 and have
No, no, no,
companionship.
no. I'm not saying it's all about the pussy. I'm saying that's all she has to offer,
No,
pretty much.
if that was all she had to offer, then you wouldn't be having dinner with her. Okay, it has to
Yeah,
be.
but the only
Hold on,
reason you're taking her to
no,
dinner is because there's a chance you can get it.
no, you wouldn't. That's not the case. You're looking for a romantic relationship. You're not looking for just a piece of pussy. Because
Right,
that was the case, you would just pay for it and be gone with it.
right.
You're not
I
looking
mean,
for that. I've asked guys that, and Roland Tomasi says the same thing. What you're looking for is a woman that genuinely desires you. That's what you're looking for.
and I'll play devil advocate a little bit in my statement.
Hmm.
Men, we tend to prioritize, especially black men. We
Hmm.
tend to prioritize having sex with women over what the woman actually is. But the
Hmm.
thing is, we've been socialized to do this, but we have an underlying desire to actually have a long lasting relationship with the
Hmm.
women that we come in contact with. I won't discount that, our culture is very over sexualized and men prioritize it over things that they should not. But once the deed is done, we're looking at, can she cook? What else does she have to offer? What kind of person she is. It's totally out of prioritization, but nonetheless, it is still the composition of our relation to women.
Hmm. Yeah, it's got to be more than that. Otherwise, they will all be prostitutes.
And like you just said, men prioritize it, and women know this.
Okay,
So
that's what we
that
tell ourselves, and that's a
that's the
lie.
weapon.
No, that's a lie. It's not. It's not. That's a lie. That's a lie that men keep telling themselves it's just about the pussy. It's not. Because we shame each other about tricking, about having prostitutes, about having paying for sex. Okay, it's a lie, and we
Yeah,
need to stop telling ourselves a lie. What and actually demand more non-sexual companionship from that woman.
yeah,
Oh,
because
I believe that.
yeah, because the whole notion, and this is a thing that we have been trying to escape from. The reason why we are seen so objectively in the media, on different talk shows, on the radio, is because of not only the way that we portray ourselves, because we're feeding into the stereotype, just like BGS said, we're definitely
Mm-hmm.
feeding into it, but we are not the stereotype, and men understand this. That's the reason why we charge each other up for feeding into the stereotype. We'll say to each other, man, you know that chick cheating on you, why you still dealing with her, and this and that,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll self check each other. We
Mm-hmm.
have the ability to skate past all these stereotypes, but nonetheless, there will be some dude that bases his life based on what others tell him he should be,
Hey,
and that's
you
that's where
want to
we
hear
that's
my
where we get
theory?
the that's where we get the mass misunderstanding
Mm-hmm.
from.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hear my theory?
Go ahead.
I re- the reason why um, African Americans has a problem with absent fathers is because white people are bigger cooks.
Nah, well, that's your theory, but it'd be wrong. But it is what it is.
I think uh, African American people are more likely to say "fuck you, bitch" and get out of there, whereas the white guy will be like, "Please, I'll do anything, please,"
Well,
Not
and stay
really.
in there.
It's a dance between the male and the female, and and uh, and that's part. That's a lot of that stuff is part of our culture, and
right.
it's more complex than that.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. On the surface, it may okay, and the reason why I can talk so liberally about this, the crossing of these lines, whether it be different cultures or not, in regards to black and white, is because I have worked in the corporate world. I have dealt with the military. The military has a large population of white people. I have lived in what we call the lifestyle. This is where people expose their true sexuals, their sexual truth, and what you say, Gary, has some credence, but it is superficial, because it's based on the aesthetics of what the culture shows you. But there, if you dig down a little deeper, you'll find out the truth of things. What I started to understand when I was in the culture, excuse me, in the lifestyle, that there were a lot of cooks that were white, but when they would go back to what we would call their regular lives, their vanilla lives, they were people who owned real estate buildings, real estate businesses. They were people who were in charge of directing people and firing people. I
Mm-hmm.
remember I remember I was dealing with, and this is not a story I necessarily like to tell, but I remember I was dealing with this guy's wife, and we were having a conversation. I know this sounds crazy, but this is what happened. It's the truth. It was many years ago, but anyway, we were having a conversation, and his wife was discussing with him while we were sitting at the bar that she was thinking about firing someone. He was like, "Yeah, I'll probably end up firing that guy. I'm gonna go in on Monday, and I'm gonna give him his pink slip resignation." So it's not necessarily that these men, what you see, uh, is a whole representation of them. It's just that that's the way they are set up. It's not the surface level of certain things isn't the totality of the individual. It's just that that's a small portion of them. So just because you see that white men in some instances will simp, doesn't mean that they're going to be a simp for that whole entire relationship. That's where black women get it wrong when it comes to white men.
Mm-hmm.
They get it completely wrong, and and what we see in the white man black woman relationship, we see what we would call bed wenching sometimes, and that the women automatically changed into this magical person. But what they don't see in those relationships is that they are holding those women to standards.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they don't see.
Yeah, and plus they've been socialized to have a different relationship with white men than black men.
That's also true. It definitely is a puzzle piece, definitely, that fits
Mm-hmm.
together. But
Mm-hmm.
nonetheless, we talk, and especially in the black sectors, we talk very heavily about the black woman, white woman, dichotomy of how the black woman is submissive under these states. Yes, we can spell out the pathology and what Grinch calls the plantation politics. Yes, but we don't understand the inner workings of that. We can tell you what the surface level stuff is all the time, but we are not sitting at their dinner tables every night and listening in on their conversations.
Mm-hmm.
We don't understand the interpersonal relationship so much so that we can recreate it even within our own community,
Yeah, and
because it's completely different.
it is going to be different, and then, but you can also tell by the way how the white community socializes their women.
Hmm.
There
Yeah,
there's there is a difference,
yeah,
and that's like a lot of black women have a hard time basically marrying into that culture.
yeah, yeah. And I'm not going to discount that a large portion of our women have been socialized to be what we would call and refer to as bed wenches, because they are a part of the gynocracy. They do
Mm-hmm.
help support white supremacy, in my opinion. But nonetheless, there is still a foundation basis of a man and a woman in interaction. Y-
Mm-hmm.
These women, some of the pathologies that black women have, they get snuffed out once they enter into a relationship with a white man, because he won't allow certain things. He holds her
Mm-hmm.
to the standard, and he dangles the carrot of his compliance, as women dangle the carrot of their
Mm-hmm.
submission to black men. It's no different, because I've witnessed this. I've dealt with these people before,
Mm-hmm.
in regards to this combination of people. So I've seen the interpersonal workings of how these relationships work. That's the reason why I can't necessarily say that every black woman is faking the funk, because they're being held to a standard in an environment that that man controls.
Well, the thing is, they've learned to adjust to that environment. That's
Right,
that's what Kristen Carrison is trying to teach
right,
other black women. How can you adjust to the environment of being in that particular culture, because it's foreign to the vast majority of black culture.
right. And that brings us back to the front of the topic
But
is
but he,
that
but he's holding up he's actually supporting the myth about it being like 3 inches,
and
which is why most black guys are cucks.
yeah, and now I'll have to download this video and re-edit it, which is no problem. I don't mind. But nonetheless, what's happening is that the that, like I said, it brings us back to the beginning of what I was saying, is that yes, SYSBM has the right to do what it does, but they are exercising their authority. That's what they are doing. They're exercising because Pimp God came out with a video not too long ago where he
Mhm.
was telling. I think it might have been today. I'm not sure, but he was saying that the first part of leading a woman is leading yourself.
Of course.
And I don't think men understand that if they create the environment within themselves, it will permeate around them, and the women that come in the celestial oscillation of them will adapt to that environment.
If they want to be part of it.
Yes, if they want to be part of it, because a
Hmm.
woman comes to you for something. You know,
Hmm.
it's just up to you to set the bill for that. You know,
Hmm.
and I don't think the men are saying, oh, okay, well, I see that she's come to me for something.
Hmm.
We'll set the bill at pussy and move from there, and then
Well,
negotiate.
yeah, you then negotiate. You could do that, or basically, if a woman is really not trained to actually do that, basically, you're constantly going to have to manage that woman.
Yes, I agree.
It's a
I agree.
constant management, and it's fine if it's just you and her. But if you're going to have a family, it becomes wieldy, especially if you get the kids and in-laws and that kind of stuff. It gets to be much, and that's how you actually you will get a compliant woman, but you won't be happy.
Yeah, yeah, because you'll have to put in work, and that's another reason why I told men, that just because you get a woman doesn't mean just because you get a woman. I think a misunderstanding about submission kind of goes both ways in regards to a good portion of men, because
Mhm.
they think that just because they get a woman, they now have a person who's not going to require much for their submission, when that's not necessarily the truth. It's actually the inverse. To be honest with you, a man gives up more for accepting a woman's submission than she gives in her submission, in my opinion, if it does not include children. I think the equator to that, the equitable situation to that, is a woman having a child under her submission through your authority of that. But if she's not having children behind you,
Mhm.
and you decided that you don't want to have children anymore, you're giving up more than she's giving up every single time.
It depends. If she's already socialized and adapted to do it, basically, not really.
But the thing is, are we in that climate?
We're not in that climate, and
Exactly.
which is why you need to. So why guys are going to find other groups of women that fit that bill.
Yeah, yeah, and I wonder, because I dealt with a few foreign women, and I've dealt with women who came from other countries who came here. And the women who come from other countries who come here, yeah, they got a little socialization, but they still, especially if they come from a patriarchal system, like from
Hmm.
Haiti or Dominican Republic or something like that, they
Hmm.
still hold on to a little bit of that understanding of male nature.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, there's still work too. You don't get away from it. At least I've never had, because I've dated women
Yeah,
who, you know.
there's work, and there's toil. Okay,
Yes, 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 yeah, yeah.
and there's work and there's toil, and there's constant managing, the underlying power struggle. Okay,
Mm,
I don't care. Well, if the woman is not socialized in some sort of way to actually be uh, open to submission, I don't care how hard you work, how much money you have. You're always gonna have hell with that woman.
yeah, yeah. Um, You know, personally, well, I can only speak personally. I think for the average man, that's so. But I think for the man who understands himself and has a good authority over himself,
Hmm.
and learns how to govern his emotion and understand his principles and have created them himself, I think personally, from my experience, that you'll have a much easier time in dealing with a woman who
You would.
shows some signs
Well,
of
thing is,
being,
okay. Well, then you will have what everything that you just said. Now, I always, I've preached this for the last 6 years. Everything you just said will basically give you the ability to select a more amenable woman.
yes,
It's on your program. Pimps do the same thing.
yes,
A
yeah.
pimp will tell you every woman is not going to be on their program, and a woman has to choose to be on this program. He sets the barrier, he sets the conditions, but she has to choose to be in his program or not.
Hmm. Okay. But that's I would say that that's even so in regards to simps. You know, you know, you get what you allow. You know, you get what you allow in your life, and I think that goes without saying. You know
Hmm.
that if a woman uh, in some way, shape, or forms agrees to coalesce with you in
Hmm.
a relation, then
Hmm.
she's going to go along with the program. And I've said before, which I'm probably going to do another video on, that no program is still a program. You know, because you're teaching someone, you know, you are enabling a woman to be exactly what she is, which further reinforces what she's going to be in your life perpetually moving forward from the point
Hmm.
where you don't give her a program. That is a program in itself. And a lot of black men have been taught the program of giving a woman no program at all. You know,
Well, yeah, well, yeah, well, um, because they the same thing that the women have been taught. There is no program.
well, I believe there's a program especially for black women because you know,
There's you trust them. I got daughters. There is no program.
you don't think so? You don't think
No,
that?
there is no program.
So why is it that the women uniformly uh, coalesce in gynocratic views?
Now they have been taught, but thing as far as relationships, there's no program.
I believe there's a program because that's the reason why SYSBM
I
jumped
came
up.
I came from an era where there was a program,
Hmm.
and I talked to the architects of this non-program that we're on right now. Back in the late '80s, early '90s, when this changeover actually happened, and they
Hmm.
said they were going to get rid of the what they call marriage 1.0 and
Hmm.
replace it with marriage 2.0, 2.0, whereas you negotiate.
Hmm.
So you come in so each partner comes in with no preconceived program, and
Hmm.
you negotiate that your relationship from the time you meet and to the time you die. So that's a constant negotiation.
Well,
That is their idea.
well, let me
There is
let
no
me
program.
let me clarify my definition of program. What I
Hmm.
mean by program is the socialization.
Hmm.
I mean, because if I were to contextually take out the word program and put socialization,
I think
you
with
would be
socialization.
essentially saying that they don't have any socialization in relationships. But I believe that they do. I believe that women have been socialized to because it starts with the vetting process, the so-called vetting process. I'm air
Hmm.
quoting that.
Hmm.
Of having a man with such standards that are so unrealistically put together, you might as well go down to Build-A-Bear and you probably get a better product. I mean, because that'll be more realistic than the man than you envision in your mind. But nonetheless, I believe that that translates into the relationship, and it's kind of funny that because the reason why I say this is because we see this through the numbers that
Hmm.
majority of the women who end up as single mothers, quote unquote, come from a small pool of guys. So I believe that that is part of the program for them to select those men because
But it's also another variable to that, sir.
what's that?
It's only a small because of the harsh child support laws. Only a small pool of guys are willing to get them pregnant out
Well,
of
yeah,
wedlock.
yeah, well, yeah. At this point, but what I mean by numbers, we're talking retrospectively. You know,
Even retrospectively, with the look at the before the child support laws, it was probably more equally distributed.
what was that? What was it around about this the 60s, 70s when?
60s, 70s. What is it? When Monahan wrote his report, the out of wedlock birth rate was like 20%, maybe.
Hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, I would, but what I mean, okay, essentially what I mean by program
Hmm.
is the mass production of a direction that's given where it's almost like putting a battery in someone's back. We say that all the time, that
Hmm.
things seem to recoil off of one another, and so much so that it's creating a strategic domino effect. And that's what I consider the program, meaning that these women are still selecting from a certain pool of men every single time. How is it so that
Hmm.
the smaller pool of men could create so large of a population of baby mothers, but rarely do any baby mothers really know each other? You know what I mean?
They know each. Oh, it depends on where they are, but they 9 times out of 10 they do know of each other.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
In fact, it happens all the time because the guys with something to lose. If the women had really had a choice of choosing their baby's father, why would they choose a dude with no job and no money?
program.
It's not programmed. No, they.
I would say it because they do it almost flawlessly every single time.
How many kids would you have, Wolf, if you didn't practice precautions?
Oh, I would have plenty of kids
So would I. How come you don't?
because I practice precautions.
So in other words, we're not the people getting these women pregnant, are we?
Oh, no, 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 no. What
So
I'm
so who is?
That small pool of men.
A small pool of men because they have nothing to lose, so they don't care. I tell this story, man. I was at down the street. There's a local hamburger stand right where all the hood guys go, right? So
Hmm.
I'm standing there, and there's five guys talking about how many kids they have, right?
Right.
Guess what the lowest number was?
Probably about three.
Five.
Okay. Okay.
The one guy, even though he had a nice car with no job, he had 13.
Hmm.
Okay. And basically, all those guys had a similar story. They really had nothing to lose. They didn't have a regular job. They wouldn't worry about child support. The one guy had 13 kids. He had six baby mamas. They have a kid. They take him down and put him on welfare and get him food stamps, right? And
Right.
then he would pitch in with his hustles to actually help support the kid. Okay.
Yeah, but nonetheless, once
Hmm.
again, like I said, I believe that it still comes from a program because how in the world could these women know that would essentially assume that these women are indiscriminately giving their womb to men, which we can account for in some fashion, but it is constantly the same group of men.
And who are the super breeders? It's that class of women. That's number two. There's a there is a what it says. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics. Got to read into them. And I hear the myths, but the thing is, I live in the hood, man. I still live in the hood.
Yeah,
Okay, I know how they get down. I see the dudes that have babies by a whole bunch that have babies by a whole bunch of chicks, and I
yeah,
know the difference between me and them. Okay, the difference
yeah.
between me and them, between me having 8 kids or 9 kids, was that I could have easily had starting from the age of 15. Um, and them that have 8 or 9 kids, is that I wasn't willing to get these women pregnant.
That's true. Something to lose, of course.
Something to lose, yeah.
But nonetheless, I say that it comes from, okay, maybe we can throw some natural consequences in there, to
Okay.
say that proximity has something to do with it, the ability to move around,
Mm,
the
mm,
lack of time due to having responsibilities outside of children if you don't have any, those can accumulate to something that may look like a program. But how do you explain the women just just being able to go from place to place and find these men. Because let's face it, I've dated a strag before. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And I've had sex with her before, and I've practiced some amount of safe sex. But the
Mm-hmm.
thing is, these women, they are not just dating these men. They just having sex with these. They don't even have long lasting relationships with these men.
Mm-hmm.
At least I dated the woman, so therefore she was necessarily off of the market. So there
Okay.
was a gap of service in there. You see what I'm saying? Where these women are having children from back to back to back by different dudes. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
because those are the women, those are the guys that are in the neighborhood, those are the guys that are in their class, those are the guys that are in their area. Of course, they're going to have sex with them. They're not. The vast majority of these women are not going from one city to the next finding guys to have babies with. They're in the same area. They're having 4 and 5, 6 kids, and a lot of times they know this guy. You know.
True. Yeah. True. Because I've seen it before. They
Mm-hmm.
know that this kid got some kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't believe any of their false cries about how they're victims, and
Oh no.
because we've already sussed that out backwards and forward, that women are the gatekeepers to sex and reproduction, so that argument is moot. But nonetheless, it's kind of strange because I mean, it's hard to say that this small pool of men exists everywhere that baby mamas are. You know what I mean? There has to be still
Well,
some.
look at what okay look at where the baby mamas are. The upscale women that are, I would say, about the 87s and above are probably, if they're going to have kids, they may have one or two. They're not going to have,
Right.
the
Yeah.
vast majority of them are not going to have 5 kids by 5 different guys.
Yeah. That's true. Um, I don't know, but I still believe it's a program. I mean, it may
Well,
be an interchangeable one where the male does some things and then the woman does some things. Thus, it creates the pathology. But
it is a program. It's a program with, it's a program with what I call lower class women
mm,
that because having a baby, if a woman wants to get out of what is called virtual poverty, the easiest way to do is have a kid,
yeah, yeah,
and she got to find somebody willing to actually give her a kid.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
if
and
she
it
if she can get a higher class, if she wants a higher class man, if she wants a wolf, she's gonna try to marry a wolf.
yeah, and that comes with the reason why they end up with these guys, because it comes from the indiscriminate,
Yeah,
who wants it,
who
and
wants
some
it? Yeah,
guys just sucks right in.
that's right. Yeah, Tracy Morey, and she can't figure out who the baby daddy is, right?
Yeah, yeah, that thing is a mess, and I've actually had conversations with women like that where they said, it takes two, this and that, blah 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 blah. Well, apparently Maury said that was a lie, because apparently it takes like 10, because they keep calling them baby fathers up there one after another, and
Mm-hmm.
they feel like it takes them, but
Mm-hmm.
apparently it doesn't. I don't know what the extrapolated number is average of how many men it takes, but it's a shame to watch women not take
Mm-hmm.
no accountability, especially
Yeah.
for themselves, because it doesn't produce nothing but regressive
Yeah,
behavior.
and the
Props
state
it up.
props it up. I mean,
Yep,
and it's
yep.
not just here. If you look at Sweden, Sweden has almost as high out of wedlock
Yeah,
birth rate as we
they
do.
got like 52% last
Yeah,
time I
yeah,
think I checked.
yeah. Well, yeah, it hovers between 50 and 60%.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, I remember reading those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
So
and
Great
and
Great Britain is hovering right around 50.
and somehow men think they can escape this. They don't
Uh,
understand. I don't know why SBM isn't teaching the core tenet of still, because these men, they're leaving and they going, because I've seen it happen, especially being in the military. These
uh,
men, they go to other countries and they marry and get these women pregnant, and the child support laws are harsher over there than they are in America. Especially places like Germany
oh yeah,
or like any of the
yeah.
European nations. Yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah,
ugh,
yeah.
no, you don't want to deal with that, bro. You know, But I think that's something that we need to teach men, that not only should you check for submission, but you should probably check yourself still again,
Oh
because
yeah,
you can
yeah.
end up in the same circumstances under the gynocracy, because the gynocracy is damn near worldwide, in another country that you can here. And I'm not saying that men shouldn't go out and seek their adventures, but you should do it with the same mindset or better that you had here.
What the thing is, okay, you're gonna get okay in America. I'm gonna tell you, okay, you're not gonna get submission. I think we're using the wrong word. You're gonna get compliance. And I think we're using
Yes,
the wrong word. We said,
yes,
"Well, I'm gonna submit. I ain't gonna submit to a man until he proves to this, that, and so that he has a program, that he has he has his manhood or his masculinity intact, all that kind of stuff. Blah blah blah. Right?
yes.
Stop lying. What the thing is, you're willing to comply with a man if he has all these things, just like you're willing to comply with your boss. Okay.
Once again, that's the reason why the word submission comes off so harshly to them, because they understand that from the point that they are talking about to the point that men are talking about, that this is, in compared to the two, the men's definition is slavery.
Well, then if they don't understand it, and we know that they don't understand it, we should stop using it. Find a better word.
uh but how many times are you going to cut yourself at the knees just to have a conversation with a midget?
No, the thing is, if you want the midget to understand what the fuck you're talking about, you can change your verbiage. Is that not, sir? If you're in Mexico and nobody understands English, you basically that's what you're gonna have to learn Spanish.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I get it. That if you're
Um,
you need to know your audience. Definitely,
what I'm
you
saying
definitely
is,
need to know your
at some
audience.
point, the logical men need to stop fighting emotional arguments. If she doesn't understand
Yes,
the word submission, stop using it. Say, find another word that will say what you mean, because you know that she's not going to be submissive to you. She's not trained to be that way. Say,
that's true.
what I want is a compliant wife that will do the things that my program instructs her to do.
Oh, oh no, BGS. You can't say program neither, and you can't use program and compliance in the same sentence.
I
You
sure.
gotta,
Why not?
because that's going to imply submission.
Well, then, dude, then that's your word. Then she has to define it for me. What does submission mean?
You know, I would, to be honest with you,
Mm-hmm.
as much as I would like to have a conversation with these women who do not understand submission,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there's anything that I can say to them short of saying that word, that they would understand anyways. And I that's why I don't understand why men consistently have these conversations, no matter if you forward or backwards this, because I've seen the conversation change from subject to subject, especially on master teachers, but throughout the manosphere, I've seen it change from subject to subject to subject, and then all we're left with after that stream is what the fuck happened.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
because it was never meant to go anywhere.
yeah, true, but at some point, these men want to have a meaningful conversation, and I think they just let it ride because they see their views going up, But nonetheless, there are men that want to actually have these conversations, and I always ask them, why are you getting into these emotional
Why
arguments?
would you get people that are not capable of having that conversation? Those women are not capable of having that conversation. They don't understand it.
Yeah, and you
They
know,
don't even understand what submission meant, because they were complaining about how come you letting these guys escape the country from our grip,
yeah, and
instead of
it's and it's
making them become the men that they want.
and there was so much gaslighting going on. Oh my, it looked like a green room at basic training when they threw the CS gas in there. I mean, it was so much gaslighting going on in there. I couldn't understand how these men could stand that. It's
They want
only so much I can tolerate.
because they want
I
to
you
hear it.
know.
They want to hear it.
I mean, but come on. I
They want to
mean,
hear it. They want to hear it. And you keep saying that you want submission, and they keep throwing it out as a like you said, as a carrot. Okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna get it as much as I can for this word you call submission, and at the end of the day, I'm still not gonna be submissive. I'm like Kendra said, I'm actually gonna not. I'm actually gonna what is it? Perform it
yeah, yeah.
just like an actress. I'm gonna act like I'm submissive. I'm gonna act like I'm compliant.
Yeah, and that's such a shame because you waste more. These actors, these actors and actresses. We see
Hmm.
the interviews of these people all the time. They say, that was a really tough part to play because that's really not me.
Yeah.
Or I fell right into that role, so I had to not tweak very much to actually fall into this role. My point is, why act if either or those scenarios don't fit you? I mean, I understand that there's a payoff in this, but nonetheless, it is a short term thing that you can't withstand past the wall.
Hmm.
You know, I don't. It's like a I was outside barbecuing the other day, and it's moth season right now in Colorado. But
Okay.
I ended up putting up my little buzzer, that the moths
Hmm.
go into, and I'm just watching them like how many of y'all actually going to watch the moth go in here, get zapped, fall on the ground, and then you follow right behind them?
Yeah. Yeah.
How many times are you going to watch this? You watch these
Well,
women do the same, and
yeah.
it's to the point where it's blatant ignorance. It's blatant intellectual dishonesty because you see the outcome of these women, and somehow you think you can beat that system.
Because they've been taught that they can, and it's reinforced by not only men but not only women but men.
I
If
mean,
you if you just you were just saying if you become have a better program, you're more dominant, you're more masculine, then you will actually gain submission where there wasn't submission before.
that's true. That's true. But
What you're not gaining, and so I said that's why uh what's his name said wrote the code. He said words and definition of words are important. What you really talk about is compliance
yes, yes. And
under a system, just like in the military, compliance under a system.
yes, and I believe the women understand this. I think they understand this, but nonetheless, they
Mhm.
are they are taking that inch and taking a mile when they don't realize before the end of that mile is a cliff. It's like how much more painting on the wall do you need?
That's their problem. Just don't go over the cliff with her.
Of course not. Oh hell no. Oh hell no. No,
Because
no,
she
no.
will take you with her if you let her.
Oh yeah, she will. I mean, I remember that picture that you put up of the woman standing on. I think she was standing on off of the cliff, and the man was hanging off the cliff, if I recall correctly. And
Uh,
she had the key.
oh yeah, yeah,
To
yeah.
yeah.
She was drowning, but she would,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
he
yeah,
could save her, but he was chained to a tree. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And
she'd rather go down drown
yep,
and let him starve.
yep.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're dealing with.
Hmm.
I understand SYSBM, but
Hmm.
I think that culture culture is telling them that things are so much different that these behaviors are foreign.
Yeah.
I don't think that the issues that we have here in America are completely foreign, given putting a woman in the right environment, because that's the reason why you can't bring them chicks back here.
Okay. Um. Yeah. Oh, the thing is, okay. The thing is, there's a difference. And they've proven this. The divorce rate of a foreign bride coming to America is like around 10%. Okay.
Really,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah. Whereas the divorce rate of the average American woman is like, a little over 50%.
Okay. Yeah, this is just pure anecdotal because, once again, I would traveled in the military, so I would run into the guys who married the women overseas and they brought them back and they turned into complete, nuclear meltdowns,
Hmm.
and then they subsequently got a divorce. There was a large portion of them. I mean, you
Hmm.
can even probably ask Grinch about this.
Hmm.
But that was a common thing, don't get married overseas, just like it was a common thing to never marry a stripper.
What I'm saying is, at the end of the day, if the divorce rates of you bringing a foreign bride in versus um, getting married at home are the same, what's the difference?
True, true. And I get where you're coming from. That's why I said it was completely anecdotal,
Hmm.
because I didn't even know the stats exist for that,
Hmm.
because I thought we were still trying to figure out what the hell was going on with us, but I figured somebody probably had did it. I just didn't know where to find
What's
that kind
the
of
divorce
stuff.
rate in the military? Period.
Probably 90%.
That's what I'm talking about. So what's the divorce rate of say you get a say a military guy gets married with former woman in the States? Okay,
Yeah,
what's the divorce rate for him
it's
anyway?
it's it's exacerbated again.
Yeah. So I'm talking about. So what's the difference?
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but once again, that came from anecdotal.
Okay.
I didn't know that it was you had a higher chance of success if
Yeah.
you brought the women back
Yeah.
if you were a civilian. I had
Yeah.
no idea about that.
Yeah.
Also, I guess SYSBM, it's probably a safe bet. It's probably a really safe bet.
What the odds are at the end of the day, your odds are probably better with a foreign bride, and at the worst, they're no worse than if you married an American bride.
Yes, that is
It's gonna
true.
be it's gonna be the same. So the thing is, they'll say, "Oh, okay, because she's foreign, and the possibility of her being divorced is almost as good as being is one here." Okay,
Hmm.
so so what you're saying is, uh, I should just stick to the women that I'm not really rocking with, just because they're local rather
Yeah,
than foreign.
just because vagina.
Oh, just because well, the possibility that she might divorce me.
Yeah,
Okay, so if they could say ironclad that if you married inside the United States that the divorce rate is going to be less than 10%, then you would be a fool
yeah, yeah,
to go outside the country and
yeah,
marrying a foreign woman and bringing her back. You'd be a fool. But
yeah.
that's not the case, especially in
Right.
the black community.
Yeah,
The divorce rate for the black community is almost 80%, and 80% of the divorces are actually filed by the woman.
yeah. That's true. That's true. But I'm gonna address this question that
Go ahead.
oh, where was it? Kendra had a question. Um, where is it? Oh, here it is. She had a question for you. She said, "I see what you're saying about changing the language, but at the same time, not understanding is a gaslight on a lot of levels. At some point, they have to acquiesce or be left alone." That was
Exactly.
essentially what you're saying. Yeah,
And in
essentially what
other
you're
words,
saying.
changing the language means you're clear.
Yeah,
And that way you don't have to go around in circles about what the meaning of is.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that. And it's uh, uh, you know so should we be teaching the men that we need to readapt our understand not just our understanding of what we want but our language to the women,
Yeah.
if we want to necessarily go back to the table with them.
Submission is basically a female word, right? For
Yeah,
the most part, right? It's a
yeah,
female word. Men is about compliance. Do what I tell you the fuck to do. Right?
yeah,
Basically,
yeah,
because when you go to work in the military, they don't talk about you submitting to the will of the government. They say comply to the order and the rules of the statutes that have been laid out to you. Men understand that.
right. Yeah,
And,
and I think the reason why we don't use that context, because I necessarily don't use that context because my my energy precedes me. My environment precedes me.
hmm
So I don't necessarily have to say too much in regards to that.
hmm
But I think a lot of men are starting from scrap, and they use the word submission as a wholesale word rather than selling off the context individually, like you're saying, as far as breaking it down and saying what they're saying. So,
hmm
so I think the men need to get a better grasp on exactly what they want. I don't think men know what they want, to be honest with you.
because
Compliance could be many things.
because when it comes to submission, basically, um, I think it's that women, especially black women, say they won't submit.
Hmm.
They
I
won't.
mean,
They won't submit. So basically, men are saying, okay, most women won't submit. So guess what I'm going to ask for? Something that they say what that most women won't, which is submission.
yeah, I can see that. I can see that because I practice some level of that in my own life.
Mm,
But nonetheless, for these are guys that we are talking about. I mean, because one of the two have to be childish. You know what I mean in this situation. Because is it the men who are childish because they're asking for a nebulous thing that they can't define under a certain circumstance, tangibly, meaning like you will submit, and this is what I expect from you, not just using these nebulous words like I need you to love me, respect me. Like those are nebulous things, but I'm talking about like real life specific things. Or is it the women who are being childish because they understand what submission is, but they won't do it because it involves them giving up 100% of what they have to offer instead of just getting the best deal on limiting it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, which one would you say of the two is childish? Because I mean, I could necessarily say both of them are childish because both of them come from an immature spot in their mind, meaning that the women are saying, "I'm not going to give you something because that's just too much," and just because, and the men not being mature enough to define to a woman what submission is to the point where he doesn't have to even use the word and expect it from her.
Because in the past, you never had to define it or bring it up. It was just automatic.
True.
If you wanted to be a wife, these are your duties and your roles, and and the stuff that you have to do, and vice versa. Sister Asada was on. In fact, the good uh, a good example of that kind of stuff is basically, I think it was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday on Art New Styles panel,
Hmm.
Friday touch up. He had Sister Asada on for like 2 hours.
Hmm.
Okay, and Sister Sada she never, when you brought up submission, it was never a thing, right? It
Hmm.
was it came with it. She didn't have to ask for it or actually talk about it. She was trained, she just did it, right?
Hmm.
That was her role. Vice versa, masculinity and providing for the family, protect, all that kind of stuff was his role. He gave what he's supposed to give, she gave what she's supposed to give. No, it was never a discussion.
Yeah. Yeah. True. I mean, but in this day and age, I mean, sure. We as the collective of intellectuals who, and I'm not necessarily including you in this. I'm speaking to you as the group, but we understand that there has to be some level of conversation, but it does not have to include the word submitting and dominance per se, even in the context of things. But what I'm saying is, how should we have these? What would you say to men to have a conversation with? I mean, because we can say we want compliance, but what does that look like? You
Yeah,
know what
one
I
thing,
mean?
okay, what it looks like is basically uh, different for each man or each group of men. Okay,
Hmm.
what compliance look like is going to be different. Okay, that's like you said, a man has to have a freaking program. I've said that from the very beginning. If you don't know who you are and what you're about, you cannot pick up the right woman for you. It's impossible
That's true. That's true.
because what is she going to comply to?
Yep. So you heard it. I already knew the answer, but you heard it from BGS's mouth that
No,
you need to have a program.
the very first video I put up on my IBMOR channel talked about that.
Hmm. Yep.
Talked exactly about that. You know what 5 things I would tell my son about women.
Okay. Yep.
One of the very
I
first
remember that
videos
one.
I put up there
Yep.
talked exactly about that. First of all, you have to know who you are. The Warren B said the exact same thing. You got to know who you are first.
Yep. And
Otherwise,
it's
even as a pimp, what kind of pimp are you? Before you go out and pick a hoe, you got to know what kind of pimp you are, what kind of game you
yep.
have, what kind of program you're gonna put her on.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's
Exactly.
no good.
Yep. Hey, what's going on, my Kendra?
Hey, Myra. Hey, BGS.
Hey, Kendra, I knew you wanted to get in on this one. You chomping at the bit.
Well, I was content to sit back.
No, no, you weren't.
Because if you, I was
Hey, Gemini to Gemini. It's not gonna work.
no, no, no. I was
You, you,
content
you, no, no, you
because
chomping at the
I
bit.
was
Come on,
waiting.
jump in. You chomping at the bit. I know. This is right
No,
up your. This is right down your alley. You had to get in on this one. Go ahead.
the only thing that I kind of really had to say that I didn't want to type was the language thing.
Hmm.
See, I'm of the opinion that I'm going to use the harshest possible language to describe that.
Hmm.
I'm gonna use the word submit, and I'm
Hmm.
gonna I'm gonna use that terminology. I know they don't like it. I
Hmm.
don't buy that they don't understand it though.
Hmm. They
That
do.
is gaslighting. They understand exactly what's being said because I've watched other men in this space. I have seen it offline where men have tried to explain what they want and they have articulated it in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
even down to just the actual duties themselves, not using the word submit, not using the word compliance, not using the word do what I say or
Mm-hmm.
any of that. Just saying, okay, this is what I would want my wife or significant other to do. And
Mm-hmm.
every time it looks like it's shaping up into some type of responsibility
Mm-hmm.
that she's going to be responsible for and accountable for, it
Mm-hmm.
was always like, well, I could do that, but
Mm-hmm.
only if he
Mm-hmm.
does this. And this is why this is why I don't really advocate switching the language to something that might be more palatable because the reality is nothing's more palatable. The
Mm,
concept itself is not palatable at all to
Mm-hmm.
and it's especially so with American Black women because as a group we have been cultivated to be the concubine, not the wife.
Mm-hmm.
mm,
So therefore, this is why you only see even halfway they act decently when they get into situations that's reminiscent of the pimp whore dynamic. And this is where I disagreed. I think it was with you, Wolf, by saying that they don't understand that dynamic. They understand it intrinsically, even
Mm-hmm.
if they can't articulate it, or even if they deny having any understanding or even having any affinity to it. The same way they deny being a feminist while holding every feminist idea.
mm. Yeah.
So we've been bred to be the concubine class and therefore only respond positively when and they respond positively when that dynamic is presented. This is why it confuses people. Well, why do these chicks do everything for the Madden King? He's sitting at the house not doing much, but piping her down or whatever, and she goes out and work and let him drive the car and give him all kind of money, and she seems to be almost content with such a situation that other women would not be content in. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a derivative of the pimp whore dynamic. She go out and breadwin and bring it back to him, and he, what I'm saying, he a benefit off of her labor. It just so happens that supposedly she's not going out having sex with another man, but she is going out and dealing with these other entities, be it that of the job, the boss, or whatever, to
Mm-hmm.
procure resources that he also benefits from, and his role is to just oversee her doing that. So it is symbiotic, so they understand it on an intrinsic level. This is why you can get compliance from them if you actually present them with a pimp core dynamic or a derivative of it. You can
Yep.
actually get them to comply with you because
Yep.
then they like that,
Yep.
what I'm saying, or whatever. So it's a tragic thing, and this is kind of why I support SYSBM because nobody got time to be trying to do all of that with all of these chicks. Now, if you find one that's got the solid foundation, or she's got the makings where you feel like you can actually do that and your masculinity is to the level where you feel you can do it, hey, knock yourself out. But I don't think personally that anybody truly has time to take these adult women and reform them
Mm-hmm.
into something that might be malleable, maybe.
I mean, the only women that I've heard that knew what it meant and intrinsically uh, uh, understood it, save for one, was that fitness mom. They're all Islamic,
Mm,
all of them, all of them.
mm.
Yeah,
Sister Side of you, there's a couple of others. They were all Islamic. Why
I
is
didn't
that?
know that.
because we have to understand it. Because if Islam is a culture on its own, right? It's a culture
Mm-hmm.
and it's rooted in like what people would call Eastern philosophies and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
We're forced to understand it. If we want to even halfway practice Islam properly,
Mm-hmm.
we have to understand these roles. We have to
Mm-hmm.
understand the nature of men, the nature of women, how that fits together, and trust and believe it is not an easy pill to swallow once you've been brought up initially in
Exactly.
a centric
Hmm.
society. So, I learned early on. This is why I can talk about these things so freely and it don't bother me, because I swallowed these pills early
Hmm.
because I had to. I mean, when you are faced with revelations about your nature, and it's basically tell you you don't really have the same kind of intellect that men have. You
Hmm.
don't actually have that, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, what you mean I don't got that? You know what I'm saying? And having to understand that you're not being called stupid.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's levels to it. You have to understand where you fall in
Hmm.
the hierarchy of things. It
Hmm.
doesn't make you nothing. It just doesn't make you at the top.
Right.
So, and having to understand that just because I'm not at the top doesn't mean that I'm worthless now. Because see, with gynocentrism and feminism, and we already know it's a zero sum game, or at least they pretend it is.
Hmm.
It's all or nothing. You're either at the top or nothing.
Hmm.
And you're either the leader or you're the slave.
Hmm.
There's no in betweens. There's no compromises. You want equality when really we should be looking for equity
Hmm.
in relationships. Is very different. Something very different. So that's why you run into Muslim women who have that understanding, because we have to have that understanding, especially if we done got married and we mess around and get married to a brother that's practicing Islam. You better know, or
Hmm. Are
you're
you in
gonna
the wrong?
have yourself divorced if you don't.
Hmm.
Yeah, and and I will say that it is it is cultural. It's unfortunate that there's a mutualistic dysfunction between uh black women and the men that be, you know regardless of where they stand, because that's one commonality that I've noticed, that no matter who a black woman is with, it still pivots off of a dysfunctional system, a dysfunctional relation. Because it doesn't matter if she goes to a white man, because we can understand that she's going to conform on under the master bedwench conformity most times.
For the
And
for the few that actually can, the most of them
well,
can.
yeah, and even when it comes back to black men, we still gonna see that, we still see, just like Kendra said, that it's still gonna conform to the whole pimp dynamic.
It
It's unfortunate.
and the women, the few black women that can successfully go over to and have white husbands, right?
Hmm.
Nine times out of ten, they've been socialized in a mixed environment.
Yes,
So they've
yes,
been to come from the suburbs where they're around a lot of either uh, uh, 50-50 or the majority of white people.
yeah. The Valley
Okay?
Girls.
And the Valley Girls, okay? Trust me,
Yeah.
don't ask me how I know, okay? Okay? So a lot of the black girls I went to school with that were actually socialized and went to school with white boys, right? So they were actually socialized to be compliant with them and understanding them, right?
Yep.
You can't take LaQuisha from the hood and hook her up with a white man and think that union is gonna last. Okay,
Yep.
it's not.
Yep, yep, and that was exactly what Edward was saying on one master teachers panel.
Mm,
He charged Janae up for that, because he said, you come from a biracial background, so he said, I don't understand why you're here having this conversation about how black women are being treated when you see yourself not facing the same circumstances that they're facing. So what side are you really on? So I can definitely understand that socialization point of view, but it's unfortunate that the women do not recognize that, because after he said that, she was completely stumped. She had nothing else to say. I mean, she wanted to argue that, and you could see, if you watch that exchange on that panel, you can see the other black women. They kind of look off to the side. The one girl, she ducked her head off the camera, because they didn't want no parts of that, because they're not going to come bat for you when you're batting for the white man directly. Secretly, even though that they suffer from their own pathologies that's tied to some to some level of degradation of self, and then outwardly they don't relate in the way that she was coming off. So yeah, there's a complete different socialization for the women who can make it into white society who come from black backgrounds. That's the reason why those women had nothing to say to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely understand that because I witnessed it right there live. I mean, anybody can go back and watch that video. It happened live right there. The women, they had nothing to input on that. you know but it's once again unfortunate that the women they don't understand their own socializations, and they don't understand their own pathology so much so that they can even change it. SYSBM, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what else can be said? um but their ideal, just going back to the submission thing, like that really, like, it was really irking me really bad, because then they started to bring up BDSM, and then the guy asked him, what is the definition of BDSM? Now, that's the thing. That's the reason. That's how that was my first indication, because I hadn't looked at it this way, that the context of understanding what submission is completely different in their minds than what men are talking about. Because he asked them specifically, what does BDSM represent in his words form? She said bondage, discipline, and as soon as he said discipline, he said, yep. They wanted to use that as an example of that this type of relationship is representative of the type of relationship that they're describing in regards to their submission to the men. But he pointed out that they were missing the discipline part. I don't think they even caught that.
Mm.
you know Eh, but nonetheless, uh if you guys got more to talk about, if not, we can call it, I guess.
I mean, like I said, the reason that I think that um I think that men, especially on in these circles, need to change the language is because you've exhausted this topic, right? You
Yes.
need to stop going round and round and round it. I know what Kendra is saying, right? For her, I can understand what she's saying, but for men, instead of going round and round in this topic, change the language. If they
Yeah.
can't understand you, change it. Hey, look, this is what I mean. You
you know
start
but
forget submission. How about compliance? If you're gonna be married to me, you have to be on my program.
you
Point
know
blank.
but but
Period.
but that it's as much as I really want to hold that one and walk with it. For me, saying compliance
Mm,
is a better, is a better euphemism to use. It still indicates to the women that there is some level of compromise, what I mean, that they should have, when that's not necessarily so, if the situation is supposed to be based off trust in the first place, which is the reason why you chose me.
But see, here's the thing, though. I'm sorry, BGS.
go ahead. Go ahead, Kendra.
But here's the thing, though. It goes back to what you just pointed out about discipline. But everybody's problem with any version of submission, whether you use that word, another word, a lighter word, another phrasing, the there's two problems that you're running into with the majority of these women. One is she doesn't trust you. Two, it calls for discipline, and they don't have it. She's been socialized not to trust black men, period.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm,
also, feminism has created an environment that teaches women to be the most horrible version of themselves possible, to
Mm-hmm.
live their lives completely in female chaos, which lacks all discipline and order. And so, any application of order, this is where we're running into the problem. This is why sometimes they can't even articulate why it irks them so bad for men to even say that or to even approach it, because you're trying to. It's like trying to break a. It's like trying to break a stallion that's been wild the whole time. You
Mm-hmm.
just go out into a field and think you're gonna throw a saddle on a wild horse. It's not happening. You know what I'm saying? You may never break that horse. You could. Maybe you can, but maybe you won't. And that's the thing. It hasn't had any discipline. It's not used to a saddle. It's not used to a rider. It's not used to anybody coming around trying to guide it and tell it what to do and tell it where to go. So it's gonna fight that anyway. And this is what we're dealing with today's women in these gynocentric societies, the U.S., the U.K., or wherever it's found. We as women are being socialized to not be good people. We
Mm-hmm.
don't have to be good people, and because good people have discipline, other people don't.
I can agree with that. I can agree with that because, like I said, using a euphemism kind of implies that they have some level of skating off with having to have the trust and the discipline. Because it does in order and I agree with you too, BGS, because in order to be compliant, you do have to have trust and discipline. But
Okay.
the problem is that relays to the women, and in my perspective, just testing it out as a model in my head, that if you ask a woman to be compliant, that means that she has a option to be non-compliant at some point
Mm-hmm.
in time. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Because if you ask a woman to be submissive, you're asking for everything up front. Whereas compliance is a choice. Submission is not a choice. It is
It is
given and
submission.
subsequently to trust.
Submission is a choice. You have to choose
Well,
to
well,
submit.
well, well. No, 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 no. What?
Unless we're going back to the lash.
Well, no, no, no. I mean that in a metaphysical way, because once again, submission isn't something that is readily tangible. What I mean by submission is that what I mean by you don't give someone's your submission is because the trust precedes the submission.
Hmm.
Because to be honest with you, any woman that has fully trusted me, I didn't have to ask for her submission.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
It never comes up.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily that I'm asking for her submission. I tell women, yes, submission is definitely a thing that I go for, but I use that terminology in order to prime their minds that the trust should be coming first.
Hmm.
Because if I say, because once again we're going back to
Hmm.
the cliche social handbook of the gynocracy, because these words mean so many different things to them,
Hmm.
that when I say submission, I mean submission, but I
Okay.
give a context to that as well. Whereas when men are just saying, I want you to submit, and that's it. No, they're not giving a context to it. But the context that I give is the explanation of trust. You see what
So,
I'm saying?
so people should use words that they understand. If you don't understand the words, use words that you do understand.
I mean, true, but once again, and that's why I'm on the fence between you and Kendra, because on one
Hmm.
hand I do understand that you should know your audience, but on the other hand, is it if you came to sit and listen to my dissertation, is it my fault that you don't understand my big words?
Yeah, it is because in other words, it's two-way street. If you're sitting there and you come to hear somebody speak, it's because you want to hear them, right? It's incumbent upon you, but it's also incumbent upon the speaker to actually speak to his audience so that you get an understanding.
I mean, but to what degree is it okay understand, like, for instance, if we have a college a college sit down, where they have these people come in who talk about topics like TED Talks,
Hmm.
for instance, but we have a group of 5-year-olds. Are we supposed to stop the conversation to have the conversation with the 5-year-olds
If
in
if
lieu? You know
if
what I
if,
mean?
if your audience is full of 5-year-olds, you better.
Well, yes, I understand that, but nonetheless, the majority of the women understand what submission is. But the thing is, there's a small percentage of women which are the broken vessel. Well, there's a lot. Yeah, I get what you're saying. There's a lot of women who don't understand what submission is, but nonetheless, this is a conversation meant to be heard by specific people. And if you
Hmm.
are in the wrong place, if you're in middle school trying to listen in on a physics teacher talk about 300 level physics, and you haven't finished college algebra, you're in the wrong place, buddy.
Yeah,
you
well,
know
you should be. The thing is, the vast majority of people that come into this space haven't taken that class, and they're looking for submission 101. So you have to start with something they understand. But the thing is, submission is really not the subject. Submission is really the cookie or the key that leads to a broader conversation. So in
right,
other words,
right.
how do we relate to each other? How do we get together? How do we make a bond? How do we make how do we solve the rift that's between us? And so you actually have to start with words that you understand. Okay,
Right.
this if you don't you. I don't understand what submission means. Okay, fine. You don't understand what submission means. Do you understand the word compliance? Look it up in the dictionary. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
what I mean. You don't understand the one word? Let's go to a word that you do understand. Now we get past it. You understand what I mean? Now let's carry the conversation forward.
True. And I
Instead of getting stuck on that word.
true. And I'm a firm believer of versing people on fundamental understandings.
Hmm.
I'm not far from that agreement. But at the same time, I don't curve my channel for the people who don't understand what I'm saying,
Hmm.
even though that may be the vast majority of people, due to the
Hmm.
fact that I speak very esoterically at times. You
Hmm.
know, even but to be honest with you, I'll go back to agreeing with you, because there have been people who come on my channel who say I don't necessarily understand what you're saying, and I will sit down one on one virtually and have a conversation with them. You know.
Okay, because I'm a Gnostic, so basically I live esoterically. Okay.
Hmm.
And my thing is to bring the esoteric, which is the higher level, bound down to the mundane, to where you can actually basically understand it, because there's a practical application for these principles. Okay.
Hmm.
And I can explain them in mundane language so you can understand the principle. Okay. Nobody understands. Well, because the hero's journey is the term. Okay. How do
Hmm.
you break that down to where people understand it?
Right. Yeah,
And how
I
do you
get
show
you.
it? So basically, so you don't. So a word is a word. Okay. Submission. Okay. That's too lofty for you. You can't get it. It's too big of a fudge factor. Okay. There's too many definitions of submission. Okay. Let's get down to a term that you can understand. Right. Compliance. Okay. You need to make this marriage work. Like my mother understood compliance. Submission was compliance. Okay.
Hmm.
You
Right.
put her in. This is what a wife does. Okay.
Right.
Okay. I always tell a guy, if you have a wife, you have to train her. You got a wrong woman. Okay.
Right.
She
I agree.
she you married a girlfriend. You married a concubine, a girlfriend, right? You
Yeah.
didn't marry a wife. Okay.
Yep.
If
Yeah.
you Because I guarantee you, I put Kendra in my house. I don't have to tell her anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the money. Here's the bills. Here's the instructions that you do with the house. I can leave and go wherever and work 75 hours, right? And come home. Kendra's got the house running like clockwork. I don't have to tell her anything. Which is why you get her in the first place.
Right. Yep.
You don't
I
get a
agree with that.
person. You don't get a wife, so you have to train her. Okay. You get a
Yes.
wife because you need her to do a job. Okay. You need her to have a function. Okay.
Right. I definitely agree with that.
And
I
if she doesn't understand the word submit or compliance, whatever it is, you got the wrong woman. I think they're using submission for guys using it as a test word.
Yeah. I definitely use it as a test word.
Do, what do you think about submission? Okay,
Well,
yep,
yeah.
yep, yep. Okay,
Mm.
okay. Let me go down to number 343 because 342 didn't work out. Zip. Okay.
well,
Thank
well,
you. Thank
that's
you for coming.
that's no different than what I was saying about the professor, because, and
Mhm,
to be frank with you, especially when I took higher levels of math and
mhm.
like physics and stuff like that, when the first thing, okay, you would have they would go over the
Every person.
syllabus, and
Yeah.
guess what they would do? They would give you a test on what you should already know,
Hmm.
and then if you failed it, they kicked you out.
No, well, yeah, because you're wasting your time and his being there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But what's going on, Ronan? Glad to see you.
Great. I want to say what's up to the panel,
Speak up there, sir. We can barely hear you.
I want to say what's up to the panel. Say what's up to Dr. BGS, Kendra,
Oh, you give me
Wolf.
doctor. Y'all get me in trouble giving me all these titles, man.
I do it to piss him off, but I did have a question about as far as the part with trust, but you guys basically literally knocked it out the park, which I appreciate this information as I'm changing um, my direction on how I'm doing things. Because the way I used to approach things with relationships and everything, like I didn't. I didn't have a program, and two, I didn't instill the level of trust needed to have the program stick
Yeah.
Mm,
if it was there.
And you know what? I'm gonna go back to old school for a second, right? My mother married my father not because she trusted the person; she trusted the institution.
mm.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
She
Yeah.
un-
yeah.
she entrusted the institution of marriage, that he was trained in a certain way and she was trained in a certain way. You put the two together, then it's going to work. Same thing with I'm going to assume I'm not going to make, because I'm not Islamic. Kendra put her trust in the institution of Islam.
No,
That
this is right.
am
If
I am
if,
I right?
if the man was doing if he checks certain boxes, you knew pretty much if you got into that relationship with him that
Yeah,
at least you weren't going to be in some kind of horrible spot.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, you put you put in your trust more in the in the institution rather than the man. So if the man was like I said, checks off certain boxes in that according to that institution, okay, I got a decent man. Same thing with a wife. If she demonstrates certain skills, checks those boxes, I can pretty much trust that the marriage will at least be functional.
I can't say that that's any different than today. Not in the same context, but in the
Yeah.
same template formatter. Because the women, they're trusting the institution.
No, they're not.
They're trusting the
No, they don't.
institution
No, they're
of
not.
the no, not the institution of marriage, but the institution of the gynocracy.
Well, the gynocracy, the thing is, gynocracy works if you're gonna go get a job or you're gonna go get government benefits. It doesn't work if you get in a relationship because there is no boxes for that.
Once again, who's having all these kids by who?
And what then is they can have the children, but that what does that have to do with the relationship between the man and the woman?
Well, that's the thing feminism is pushing currently.
I
That
know,
a woman can do everything, and that you don't necessarily need a man. Therefore, you can have a child and be just fine without a man.
but then the thing is, and then when you want a relationship, it breaks down, does it not?
Yes, and women. To be frankly honest with you, according to OnlyFans, new releases, women are totally fine with just being cock carousel recipients for a
Oh,
very long time.
so what are they complaining about then? Because they ain't the men that complain.
Exactly. Exactly.
They're not happy. It's not
Oh,
working for them.
oh, yeah, yeah.
No,
I'll level with you.
they're
I'll
they're
level with you.
they're not
Yeah,
happy.
I'll level with
Not
you.
at all.
But once again, this is just me simply calling their bluff that none of this stuff works that they fantasize about.
Exactly. So
You
in
know.
other words, in other words, their trust in the gynocracy is not as panning out, is it?
Oh no. And once again, how many moths are we gonna watch burn up before the next one gets it?
The thing is, what they want to do is they said, okay, well, we screwed it up. Now you guys have to come along and fix it. And the guys are saying, guess what?
Oh no, you haven't been paying your insurance policy, man.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
have not been paying,
I'll
so
say
you
so.
don't get that.
So since you want all of this, guess what? These are guys are coming with checklists, and women don't like it. Okay,
Yeah,
you got to
because it's
have this, have to have this, have to have this. Well, that sounds like submission to me. I said, really? Okay.
okay.
Okay, well, fine. I thought it was just cooperation. You think it's submission? Okay, fine. Boop.
And the funny thing about it is I don't blame any of the guys for charging the women up really heavy with unrealistic expectations, because honestly, we've been talking to these women and saying, hey, you need this insurance premium. This is the best rate that you can get. Oh no, I don't need this
See,
insurance. Accident happened, and now they're back paying twice the premium, three times the premium, and they don't want to pay it because they say, oh, that's
yeah.
too much, and you're asking for too much. That's unfair.
That's how come I don't like. I understand why guys ask for submission. Okay, and submission is total because submission is something that you get from inside of you, right?
Hmm.
That you buy into, right? Basically, what women are actually selling in the form of submission is compliance. I'm going to perform the duties as long as I can get my goodies, right?
Hmm.
It's not submission, it's compliance. So basically, instead of start calling a spade. Oh, well, how much submission do I have to get? No, we're not going to use it. We're going to use compliance. Okay, there's a checkbox for like when you comply on a job or comply in the military or whatever you do in the military. There's the checkbox for compliance that you have to check. Otherwise, you're not in what
Not in
compliance.
compliance. Yep. And
It,
and you
it's
and you, my good sir, you
it's
you
an
are
exact science.
you are spelling out exactly what I said in regards to the creativity that men have to get around women's bullshit ass
Yes.
contracts. Because now, and if you don't want to be a housewife, oh, we'll call you a house technician.
Nah,
You know,
you don't want to be a housewife? Fine. We will call you a concubine, okay? And
yeah,
you come over when necessary.
yep,
And then we
yeah,
will
Oh,
negotiate your price, you know, separately. Okay.
yeah,
And you better in the era of the diesel, their price is dropping like a stone.
Oh yeah, it's
Yes, it
penny
is.
stocks right now.
Penny
It is
Penny
stocks.
penny
stocks,
stocks. Okay.
And
or call it
it's
penny panties if you want to call it. Just
and it's so strange to watch this because it's almost like sticking your hand in a washing machine trying to get a rag out while it's washing. Like
Oh,
it's a very interesting thing to do, but it's a little fun. But you're like, I can break my arm off at any time here.
washing hell, they're sticking their hand in the wash machine during the spin cycle.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. You know, and that's
and get
that's the
flung across the
So across
room.
the room, yeah.
it's a funny thing to watch, because I see these women essentially bartering themselves
Mhm.
and expecting last market's prices. Like, no, we're in a new fiscal year, honey. Like,
Yeah,
you don't get
Yeah,
that no more.
I was listening to the women on that panel yesterday, right? The parts of it, right? They're looking for somebody to make these men comply to their wishes. That's the
nigga,
gynocracy,
please.
not her compliance, right? Make these men comply to us.
Interesting, and
That's the
that's
gynocracy.
that's that is.
The gynocracy is built on male submission. You guys got it backwards.
Oh yeah. We I understand that. Then the simps and the beta males, they're nothing but fodder. They're things to be burnt in the coals of a train, engine. I understand this.
In
You
fact,
know.
That's
in fact, there's one chick. She's a hood chick. I don't normally don't even listen to her or actually agree with her, but Dr. T sent me the video of her talking about male submission, and the question you asked, why these chicks have the babies by these small group of dudes, and she actually broke it down. She'll pick the dude that she wants, or she thinks she can get the higher tier dude. He won't comply, so she said, "Guess what? I'm not going to submit or comply. I'm going to go down to the next dude, see if he submits." And they keep
Yep.
going down and down till they find that level where there will be a dude that will submit to her will, and
Yep.
that's where she has her baby by,
Yep. And then they
where
cry
she can
foul.
control. And then of course, they're gonna cry foul. And she broke it. She actually admitted it. Excuse me, babe.
No, I was just gonna say that I'm gonna drop off,
Okay.
but thank you for having me up.
I knew you had to get. I know you had to
yeah.
your 10 cents in, baby. I said, I know that Gemini is saying, I gotta get in. I gotta get in
Right
I don't
now.
I don't
right
know why
now.
you I don't know why you just won't stay. It's not like you don't have anything to add to the
Right.
conversation ever.
Actually, been a
Yeah,
vital part.
yeah, just listening.
Say
Oh,
what?
you
Just listening.
Come
you
on,
you
come on now.
you
This is
have stuff
pride.
to add.
This is the pride lands, baby.
It's Pride Land shit.
Yeah, and we
You
we
know.
we we'd have called you up anyway. Yeah,
Exactly. Because I
yeah.
that's the reason why I put the link down there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
you know. But it's still it it gives me a pseudo headache because it's not a real headache because it's nothing that I have to tangibly deal with in my
Hmm.
own environment, but it is a proximity headache due to the fact that I'm less than a mile away from that environment that breeds the gynocracy at any given point in time I leave
Hmm.
my house.
Hmm.
It's such a strange thing to see that these women, no matter, and you can see it, and that's why I don't, I understand men's different take on things as far as SYSBM, but men are trying to SYSBM inside the country as well. They're
Hmm.
trying to go to the Asian woman and the white woman. Now, I will admit that there is a higher success rate, but you are still subject to the same consequences.
Well, when you look at looking
Yeah.
at the unknown, the unrecognized population, which is the Latinas, which is where the vast majority of black men are going.
Yeah, and I can admit that I understand that because I
Hmm.
live that life myself.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, men still have work to do. We still have work to do in regards to who we are. That's the reason why the video that you posted, SYSBM Rage. It was my stance to say that the first focus of SYSBM should be on self. You're
Of
saving
course.
yourself.
Yeah.
You can save yourself from something. That means that you come first, and then the ex whatever it is comes second. But you
Mm.
save yourself first. And I think that in saving yourself, it requires you, it basically tells you that you have to put forth your own existence first and how you want to be
Mm-hmm.
and what you expect out of life. I it is some sections of XYSBM I have seen have nothing but one for one exchange. They just swapped out black women for whatever woman, and now they assume that they're good. But you
Mm-hmm.
have not changed. You have not saved yourself. You just swim to the other side of the pool.
Well, it depends on who you were in the first place, right?
Yes,
Say
yes.
you're a educated lame in anime, right? And you can't get any traction in the black community.
Hmm.
Okay, so you go. So instead of trying to reform yourself that you fit into the group of women that you are, the pool of women that you're born in, you go to where you're already adapted to. Okay, it's like taking a fish from that's adapted to fresh water, take them out of salt water, put in fresh water.
Hmm.
I don't have to change anything. I'm already adapted to it. That's what they're
Yeah.
finding out.
Well, yeah, yeah. I understand that there are certain one for one interchangeable things.
Hmm.
For instance, the things that do not fit in one puzzle
Yeah.
actually go to another. Yeah,
Hmm.
I understand that, but nonetheless, it still is a time to work on self because you have to understand why you're in this situation in the first place. A lot of men are just faced with a problem and they say, "Well, forget trying to solve the problem. I'm just going to go over here and that fixes everything," when they do not realize that part of the problem is self.
Well, that's true. That's
You
true.
know,
Yeah.
But human beings have been doing that for eons. Okay.
Yeah.
true. But if we're going to have a movement, let's have a movement. You know, let's
Yeah.
not. Let's that. Why don't we call it? You know. Uh, save some of you men save yourself. Like no, like
Okay. Essentially, it, essentially, it's going to become a movement because the black women in the community have told you that you have to save yourself. We just don't realize
Yeah.
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the message has been there since Oprah since before Oprah. It's always been there. Yes, definitely. I mean, because part of the in my opinion, part of the civil rights movement was men trying to save themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It of course subsequently benefited white women majority, but nonetheless, there have been plenty of attempts of us trying to save ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just now that we have the foot traction and we have the numbers and
you
solidarity
you
enough to
you
do
have
this.
you have choice. That's what you have. That's the biggest
Yes.
thing. You have choice, and
Yes.
that's something that you didn't have until very recently, which is
Yes.
choice. They're still trying to take that away
Yeah.
if they
Isn't that?
can.
Yeah. Isn't that a fun thing to watch?
And your black women are basically complaining about taking away your choice.
Yeah. It's like
Don't
a
let.
it's like a little kid had a tantrum.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so funny to watch.
Mhm.
I watched those women squeal on that panel for a couple hours. I mean, they was getting into it with
Yeah,
solo TV and
yeah,
this dude, that dude, and I was just
yeah.
wondering how much could they take. it seemed like it
Yeah.
seemed like they had a long battery.
What they're squealing about is just the example about number one, why are you telling these black men to go to Brazil or wherever to get women, right? And they just complain about the Brazilian women complaining about the black men. One of them say they're not real men; they just need to go back home and need to
Yep.
solve their problems at home, that kind of stuff,
Right.
and
Yeah.
which
Yep.
is
And
just BS. But they,
exactly.
they
It's
want
just
it's the
nothing but a
same thing.
misdirection. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, that's what they learn. Like, um, anybody that has older parents knows that the way your mother controlled your father in the black community is called the law on him. It's
Yeah.
called a white
Right.
Yep.
man on him.
Yep. And
You-
they
They do
can't do that.
they even do that now with child support, right? They can't
Yeah.
control.
Yeah.
I can't control the. A lot of reasons that a woman that will have a baby out of wedlock by a dude is because she want to control him.
Yes. Yep.
I can't
Yep. I
control you,
agree
but
with
if I
that.
have this baby, then I can get the white man to control you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that don't even work half the time. So
Yeah,
it's like a
well,
it's like a low percentage rate on that one.
Well, the thing is that they can't control you completely, but the thing is, they do. She will have some kind of modicum of control over you.
Oh yeah, she'll try to whip you into submission, definitely. But
Yeah,
You
Yeah,
know, we've seen throughout time that the soul of a black man, no matter how low his masculinity is, strong. It's hard to break them. You know, it's hard to break these men past something that they wholeheartedly don't believe in, whether
hmm
they're simps or not, because it's no different than us red pill, black pill men, you know, talking to the simps and saying, "Look, y'all need to change this." They will
yeah.
fight you tooth and nail.
The first part of masculinity is choice. Okay,
Yep,
exercise and choice, and that's why it's being. That's the first thing. Male choice. Okay, I don't like what I've been given. I don't like the situation I'm in. I'm going to change it.
yep.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
And you know, I just wonder why. You know, I think they do know that men hold the power in their choice. That's the reason why they trying to gaslight them out of believing that they have a choice in the first place. You know,
No,
I can definitely see that.
they're not trying to gaslight the men out of having it. They're trying to gaslight the powers that be to restrict it.
Well, no, no,
Yeah.
no. I'm talking about the subtle cries of we need to fix our community. You know, the whole, you know, they're trying to put up the old tenets that they have used to keep men corralled in their consciousness. You know, as far as them, you know, being a part of the community and being
Hmm
creating children here and keeping the wealth within. You know, all these gaslight misdirections. You know, that try
Yeah.
to guilt men back into
hmm
thinking that they don't have a choice, but we need to be somehow, you know,
They're trying to guilt the men that's still there to stay there.
yeah,
The
yeah,
men that
yeah,
have left already have seen through that and refused it. They're already gone.
yeah,
They can't get them back. But they need to stem the flow from men leaving.
yeah, yeah,
So the men are still willing to that are still here, still willing to actually listen to it. Will listen to it.
yeah. And you know, that's nothing but a psychological warfare tactic that I've
It is
seen used plenty of times.
it's socialization. That's
Yeah,
Yeah.
how do you train a population to conform, right?
yep,
Start from a child, and they tug on that socialization that you got from a child. You're
yep,
raising a guy in
Yeah.
Aqua, so it's still.
Yeah.
I hear it amongst red pill guys.
yeah.
Okay,
Winter soldiers.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I call them, winter soldiers.
hmm
You know, they say the right words and then they fall right back in line.
right
Yeah.
back in line.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's unfortunate that they can't break their own programming like that.
Yeah, well, it's difficult to break your own programming.
I
you know,
mean,
you know that. Come on, man.
well,
Yeah.
you know, I would say,
You got to have a guide if you're gonna break your
well,
programming.
because I teach a little bit about programming and I
Hmm
understand how it works. That you know, one of the ways to break programming is through trauma. You can break programming through trauma, and I'm just wondering how much do men have to go through, because this is how we gained a collective of men,
hmm
because every single last one of us have a traumatic experience. You know, we
hmm
have a traumatic story, so that started off with breaking and cracking the program. So
hmm
we rushed to fill our cracks with something that made sense, to patch up the parts that we were missing that broke off. You know,
One is trauma, and trauma is one thing. Trauma can either do one thing and make you stand still and stay tied to that tree,
or run.
or
Yeah,
run,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
And the thing is, if you believe that there's an escape avenue, you will take it. Okay. If you don't
Yeah.
believe that there isn't, then you won't. You actually
well,
conform.
And that's what I wanted to speak on too. The
Go
uh-huh,
ahead.
trauma thing. I had to make that decision when I know a bunch of guys don't speak on it, but when you come to like really the basement of where you're at, you
hmm
have to make that vital decision. You have to segregate yourself from everybody and everything,
hmm
and really like determine which path you're going to go. You're going to stay here, go further down in the basement, or you're going to crawl your way back up. And
hmm
the thing was, I had problems with is asking for help. So when you start getting a habit like, look, you can't do this by yourself,
hmm
become more comfortable with the information you're given, examples you're shown, and changes, which brought me to this area, and
hmm
definitely seeing the benefit of results here,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. Most grateful for it.
Yeah. That's how come. That's how come. This space is growing because there's a whole lot of guys out there with trauma. The thing
hmm
is, but they don't believe there's an avenue for change until
right,
they find it here, and they said, "Wait a minute, okay, I didn't realize that there's other people with the same problem that have partially figured this stuff out. So there
hmm
is a possibility of me getting out of this space,
yeah.
out of this hole that I'm in."
Yeah, but what I'm essentially saying is
Mm,
that trauma is the catalyst.
Yeah.
Because even and every man has a different limitation of how much trauma he
Yeah.
can take before he says
mm,
this is too much.
yeah.
And this is the reason why we haven't collectively came to the same conclusions at the point of our individual trauma, because there have been different amounts of traumas that we have been through, but nonetheless there was one that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, well, the
Yeah.
thing is that you keep a population of people in compliance by giving them the carrot and the stick.
Hmm.
Okay, because you give them
Yeah.
all stick, then yeah, they're gonna rebel. But there's enough
They're gonna
carrot
beat
and
you with the sticks.
well, yeah, I'm gonna get beat anyway, right? So
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, so there's a level of comfort in the gynocracy. There has to be, otherwise people wouldn't stay.
True. Yes. And I call them consolation prizes.
Well,
And
hey, it is. It's still a prize.
Mm.
yeah, it is true. But that's a shame. That's a shame. Wanting a consolation prize when you are the prize. That's the biggest
Yeah,
thing that I
yeah.
don't understand.
And what is the biggest thing? Like I said, is the gynocracy is solid as long as there's no choice. What happens when you give men choice?
They
There
walk
is
away.
they
Yeah.
walk away. That's what's
Yeah.
happening. And women, and basically, you can't cover that hole,
Yeah.
especially if
Yeah.
you have little black boys in mixed areas. Okay,
Yeah.
with where you have choice. I got a white girl, I got a Latina, I got an Asian,
Yeah.
and
Like your son. Yeah. Good
like
example.
my son, or
Good example.
because I asked that question about every guy that's in every part of the country that has a teenage son. Who is he dating and why? And what is he? And
Yeah.
why does he say he's not dating a black woman or a black
Headache.
girl? And it all comes back with the same answer. And it's not necessarily the black woman's fault. The thing is not necessarily that she's doing anything wrong. The thing is that the mating strategy that she's been taught
Is
or
ineffective. Yeah.
is ineffective when compared to somebody else's mating strategy.
Yep. Because it's more superior. It's more effective.
It's more effective, or yeah, or whatever, right?
and
So
and yeah, and that's essentially what they were talking about on that panel as well. They brought up the the understanding that the dude said, he said, now I understand. Oh well, it was Edward again, matter of fact. He said,
of
I
course.
understand that you have certain um criteria for the man that you meet, but what he was trying to get her to understand is that that criteria is no longer effective, because we are in a different climate where I can get a woman who does not require as much for more than what you're offering. Because we understand inherently that black women, for the majority, have not been socialized to be compliant, you know euphemism, with black men in the direction that they want to go.
Yeah.
How is it that these same men who have been, because let's be honest, that the black man's biggest crutch is that we willingly give first rights refusal. We don't openly just go out. Of course, the new ages, yes, they're doing that, but
hmm
for the longest time, we gave women first rights
Of
refusal.
course.
So they can't say that we just ended up in the space here with a different type of woman without considering them first, or at any point in time. So
hmm
that has already been snuffed out. That's a misdirection. But the point of it is that he was saying that what you're offering compared to the rest of the world, because it seems like black women are still locked into the 90s in regards to their expectations for men, because these men are the same men who you rejected, who are going over here and getting better quality women for exactly who they are, who you said was not good enough.
Well, they lucky they got Edward instead of me.
Yeah.
I was
I,
saying
I,
AM a Grinch.
I'd have told him, so what? What?
What's your
That's,
point?
what's your point? Better is better. You should be the best option, not the worst.
Yeah, and they, I was saying AM a Grinch. AM would have, he would have cleared them out. He would have
hmm
He would
cleared
have
them
nuked.
out.
He would have nuked the place.
Because he would have been calling them all types of bitches, and
Yeah.
you would have heard first of all like 8 times. You know,
Nah.
That's my man's right there. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
She scare them. I have them doubt themselves to their core. So
Yeah,
what?
yeah, and,
Well,
and
you're not loyal. So what? Loyal to what?
yeah,
Yeah.
and for why?
And for why? To be paired with the worst group of women on the planet? Really?
Yeah, and they would have been like, oh, the plural, the pearls would have been clutched right then
Yeah.
and there. They would
Yeah.
have been clutched.
Yeah.
Yep, and
Yeah.
and
They're
and
not.
that's
They're
essentially
not
what they
clutching their
would turn.
pearls. They're clutching back feet. That's all they're doing.
And then they said, "What?" I said, "Well, prove to me you're the best woman in the world for the black man."
Well,
We'll
we're
start.
not
We'll start
most
with.
educated.
And that means what?
You're the most educated, and what is it? What is the condition of your black boys that you're having?
Exactly. Where's that education What is it
And it
translating to?
translates to.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's not translating to dollars. I can tell you that. It's not translating to economic profitability for your community. So it's
mm.
not translating to pass down knowledge or nothing. It's what is it? Now that I think about it, what is it really translating to? Because I'm really thinking
General
about it.
generational wealth, respectability,
None of that.
credibility,
No.
uh, intellectual growth. I mean, how much further we gonna go?
You know, and that's once again, all this is so unfortunate. Like I want to feel bad, but I know why it's happening. But some parts of me, it's like, why do we have to do this?
You don't. Because we've been
No, no, no,
conditioned. We've been conditioned to feel sorry for them.
no. I'm talking
Yeah.
about the women. Because let's face it. I haven't met any man personally in my own life, or online that mean black women to do bad.
Mm,
I've never met a man that in his soul, like a Uncle Ruckus that wanted to see black women just do the worst that they can do. I've never ran across this man, so I'm
Even
just wondering.
even Obsidian.
No, no, I can
Mm.
honestly, no,
Mm.
honestly, no. I can no, seriously,
You
I
ain't
can.
shit.
No,
You
no,
ain't
no, no,
about
no, no, no,
shit.
no,
You
no.
ain't gonna
That's
be shit.
I'm just asking. I could be
well,
wrong.
well, to be honest with you, I've listened to Obsidian's, context a lot of times, and everyone can admit that he's pretty much a hype man for,
Himself.
yeah, for himself, for what he believes in. But what you have to understand that is hype man, they go home. They can't be hype all day, every day. So I believe there is still some part of him that wants to see it done right. It's just
Hmm.
that he doesn't have he has an innate bias, due to his everyone's pathology. Everybody has their own. Not making
Mm,
excuses for him, but nonetheless, he has a pathology that is fixated on a certain characteristic of black women that they just can't shake, and that goes to the black female fuckery. That's
mm,
just what it is. But I believe, because I don't hear him talking about too much about any other race of woman that much. Even though there's stuff that goes on, which
mm,
he can definitely grab at if he really wanted to take a shot at women. But at some point, we have to admit that he necessarily doesn't want to see black women completely fail. He wants to see them fail as the characteristics that they are, yes. But as I would advocate to some small degree, not a very large one, that he has a little heart like the Grinch. It's just a little one.
little one, huh?
It's just a little one. And the Christmas spirit will grow it a little more if you believe.
Okay. Okay.
With all
You
due
know.
respect, hope can be a silent killer.
Oh, oh, don't get me wrong, brother. I don't believe, I don't have any hope that he will ever change his ways. Like, no, I have no hope for the man, but I can't say necessarily that he is 100% on women failing.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You know,
Well, I mean, hey.
because there are some women that he does praises, while
Hmm.
they are unrealistic standards for the women that we have today. He does have a small heart for some.
So
You know,
when do we leave black women to their fate?
what do you mean?
When do we leave black women to their fate?
I mean, we don't have any control over that. They've made their choice.
We keep kind of we keep propping them up.
Well, see, that's the thing. That was the conversation that I had earlier today on my other live stream. Is
Hmm.
where black women, black men, they're going into self interest mode, self reservation mode.
Yes, yes, some of us, yes.
Yes, but I think it will increase as this pandemic
Yeah, yeah.
spells
It,
spells
it,
spells
it,
worse.
yeah, I think and I believe doesn't mean it's here
Well,
today.
true, true. But
And
what I'm
it
saying
doesn't
is,
mean that it will actually materialize either.
but yeah, and that's what I said as well. But what I'm saying is that
Hmm.
because I spell it out completely. I spell out. It's sure it was it's a hypothesis, and I'm not saying anything theoretically.
Hmm.
I'm saying that as long as it stands, that men are now looking at the landscape of self-preservation because that's what's going on. Everybody is going to. That's the reason why these stores are selling out. Ain't nobody sharing this shit. They going to the stores and they're buying it. They're stocking their own pantry. And
Hmm.
let's think about the 50% of black men that do not have children. What do you think they're doing? They're not going out buying these hoes nothing. I mean, like I said, for those women who had a scent once before, call that nigga now. Call
Hmm.
them now. See if you can get something out of him.
Hmm.
You know, and my thing is that it has a potential to get worse. And this is where you're going to be stuck at as a woman because if the
Hmm.
economy crashes because it's already strained because President Trump already said that
Hmm.
if this happens again to the extreme point that it got to or worse, he's
Hmm.
not shutting down the country
It can't. Yeah.
because
He can't.
economically, right? Because if he does that again, then everything is really going to crash.
Well,
So that
Daffy
means,
Daffy Duck said it on the cartoon. I can only do this once when he blew himself up.
yeah, and and that's the thing of it. So what happened? Because now you gotta understand what climate that we're going in, and I'm talking about weather-wise.
Hmm.
We're going into the climate where there are going to be certain natural disasters that have the opportunity to happen. What's
Hmm.
going to happen if we hit a climate where there's a natural
Yeah.
disaster that calls the response and puts such a strain on the economy again that it actually collapses?
We'll see. We'll see if
We'll
black men
see.
will actually leave black women to their fate.
Hell yeah, they is. They already look.
We don't know.
We don't know
They've never
because
done it
we
before.
seen some symptoms. We see some
Oh,
symptoms
we,
around here.
did I not do a video called Blue Pill Ciphers, sir?
Yes,
You,
you did.
y'all are a lot more optimistic than I am. I can tell you that. I see.
No,
I
no,
see.
you're optimistic, but we know
Yes.
you're optimistic. We know what we're dealing with.
Hey, I believe ain't none of these dudes going. I mean, they might be a small percentage that may check for these chicks, but when they look at these chicks dragging behind them, when they have to get somewhere for shelter or food, they gonna be like, man,
With
I'm
all
out of
due
here.
respect, Wolf, what I've seen this weekend,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
I'm standing by what I'm saying.
And what you see this weekend?
a whole lot of
Enough goofy shit. A whole heap of simpery.
a
Yeah,
whole lot of fake Picassos are gonna be exchanged.
that's that
Yes.
$1,200 making them feel good.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
I'm not
Don't bet
saying
high though.
I'm not saying that the climate won't change. I'm not saying that the women will not change. I do believe they will. But the thing is, for the black men to actually abandon black women, I don't. I'd have to see it to believe it.
I mean, 50% already don't have children. They're going
That
to
don't,
who
that don't
they.
mean nothing.
But that's the
That
thing.
don't
Mhm.
mean
That's the thing.
nothing.
That don't
Okay,
mean
so
nothing.
let's be clear about this. That's not by accident. That's a very much executed thing that men had done to the point where it's 50%.
And,
That's not a consequence.
Mine was by luck.
yeah,
You think so?
I think
I
mine
mean,
was by luck because I was
oh
a little
well.
bit
you're reckless.
loose.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I was
yeah.
reckless.
I mean, but we all understand that black men are the most condom using motherfuckers in this
Yeah.
country.
You know why? Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
reason why.
Be,
Because
You
be,
see what's
they're the
out in these
mo-
streets?
no,
exactly.
they're also the most prosecuted for child support. So of course they're gonna
Facts. Yeah.
change their
True.
behavior.
So what makes y'all think that that's all of a sudden going to go in the opposite direction of where they actually captain saving these hoes?
One thing is having babies by them and saving them are two different things.
True,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. Now your life is being put on a line where you have to save somebody. If you won't even have a kid, why would you put your life on the line for?
Pussy
Oh.
and companionship. Am I wrong? Am I speaking
You ain't
English on
bullshit.
you?
Hey, you speaking fluent
They
English.
do it. They do it here, man. You get
They
Val is just talking about that, man. For
they're doing
freaking
it right
Avatar.
now as we speak.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that's off of the mirage that things have somehow magically
No,
fixed
no. This
themselves.
is the programming that's been embedded in them.
Once again, because black people, we're very superstitious because they was out there thinking that they couldn't catch it, so they was running
That
around willy nilly.
that's
But
true.
but at the
I'm
same
seeing
rate,
it, and I'm seeing it in real time in my family right now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not. But what I'm saying is, in the
Okay.
event where the economy crashes, do
Okay.
you think these
Okay.
niggas is going to save these chicks?
Yeah.
The chicks will
Some
actually
of
get
them.
real compliant. I mean, real compliant to the point where they will save them.
I agree. I agree that they will become compliant, but these men are, you know, I
Well,
I, I
I would love to believe what you're saying, but the thing is,
Yeah.
until I see it, because because the women just these hardcore fire breathing red pill throwing dudes, man, online,
oh yeah, oh yeah,
who
Online.
online who basically were basically throwing fire breathing meteors at these chicks, man. Some of them chicks came back and gave them a whiff. All of a
yeah,
sudden, they're
yeah.
dating coaches.
I
They're,
can't I
they're
can't say that that's
their,
wrong.
their programming is deep. So basically,
Right.
what you're saying that these conditions will actually cause them to break their programming completely. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because it's traumatic.
Okay, we'll see.
Okay.
It's a good social experiment.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
so.
Make. I just
I'm not.
suggest make a
I'm not
safe
betting
bet.
on it. I'm not betting
Make a
on it.
safe bet if you're gonna make one. I'll put 20 on that.
well,
Hey, hey,
well,
as Officer Charles would say, the nigger tree is strong.
well, well. At the point where this economy crashes, I don't think the bets will be worth money anyways.
Well,
Hey,
the thing is that it's not a matter of would they save them; they can't save them, and that's
yeah,
the problem. That's going to be the problem. They can't save
yeah.
them.
Ah, you know.
They can't. They won't be. The
Yes, I
economy
agree.
crashes.
Yeah,
They
I
can't
agree.
save them. So,
I agree.
so the fact there will be nobody to save.
I mean, but it's going to go back to the base fundamental exchange. What I'm saying is for a man's protection, because let's face it, that every dude still has the ability to protect
Mm-hmm.
and to
True.
some degree provide,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be collective resources or individual knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, would men accept a pseudo submissive woman?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
at this point we would.
yeah. It's
Uh,
gonna be an interesting transition should that situation happen.
See. Well, is going in right now. The simping clowns of the manosphere. He going in right now as we speak, man.
Right now.
yes,
I'm getting ready to go. That's a catchy title. I'm actually go
yeah,
listen to
I
that.
seen that. I seen that pop up, and I was like,
Here we
He
go.
got a cigar. He got a cigar and a drink too. Oh yeah, he's cooking.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He
look,
ready. He ready.
remind me of
He
my
ready.
uncles at the barbecue, man.
well, well. I'm gonna close it out anyway,
All right.
All
and
right.
hopefully I'll have another topic next week. It's something that I want to try to do every week at least, because I've been slacking on my videos. So yeah.
That was cool. I knew you guys are taking care of business, but I humbly request BGS like that
Yes, sir.
video you was talking about. I was looking to see if I can get that.
Some of the 5 things about it should be in my esoteric under my esoteric playlist.
Okay, I have to
5 things
look
about
through and
women.
see.
About I tell my son about women. 5 things about women. I do believe. I think that's it.
Yep, I
It should
remember
be on
that
the
one.
esoteric playlist. Yeah.
All right,
I,
I'm gonna check that out. And
I thought you
yeah,
heard it. I thought you heard that already.
no, I've been caught up with them changing this work schedule at
Oh,
FedEx
okay.
since we're essential workers. So
Yeah.
I've been working 6 days instead of 5. So
Oh well, you working
yeah,
though, man.
Money.
I'm working. I've been getting my ass kicked, but I'm working.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm gonna head out here. But Wolf, put $10 on.
I got your bet checked and accounted for.
So I'm gonna need your cash app, son.
All right. Well,
All
thank
right.
you much, BGS, for coming through. I appreciate the conversation as usual. We usually have a good one, I think.
Yeah.
But y'all got anything to say before we cut out of here?
Nah, I'm getting ready to go check out the simping clowns of the manosphere,
Yeah, that's gonna be a good
and
one,
have
I
a
think.
chuck. I might have to get a drink on this one and sit back and laugh.
Yeah, I think that one's gonna be funny because I'm sure he's bringing up somebody, and it's
Oh yeah, he's
probably
cooked.
from that panel.
He looks like he's cooking.
Yeah, I bet you it's from that panel. I bet you.
He probably is.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, thank you for coming through. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Peace.
Okay, I
Well, you
got
ain't
you.
say much.
I know, but I was listening. But then sometimes I don't have nothing else to say.
It's all good. It's nice to have you here as usual as well.
You know I like to be here. Mhm.
All right. So everybody over at AM's,
Yep.
I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you for coming through. I appreciate it. Catch you later.
All right. Bye bye.